307 on Super Talk 99.7. Good afternoon, everybody. I am Brian Wilson. I am your friend and radio buddy. I'm in the chair and ready to bring you 4 hours of quality news, opinion, information, maybe a chuckle or two, because, we take the news seriously, but we don't take ourselves very seriously. I don't know. Mac Morey takes himself pretty seriously.
Oh, yes,
most of the time. He's a very serious young man. But the rest of us, we don't take ourselves too seriously, and we're glad that you're here on this 14th day of December. Now, I did my math. Double-check me on this, Chris, because, my math is always suspect. 10 shopping days left till Christmas.
That would be correct, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
32 days until the Iowa caucuses, which are January 15th.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's right.
Yep.
Okay. Hey!
Not bad.
Woo! Yeah, yay me. I don't get math right very often. I want to start off today by this story. I mean, this just gets me going. And I think you're going to be outraged as well. My friend Chris Plant, who I worked with in Washington at WMAL, and a guy who is filled in here on occasion. There's only one Chris Plant. And he has a great saying. He says, the only standards that Democrats have are double standards. And I think that's really right because, they sometimes it just amazes me how tone deaf they are about things. They don't see that their positions that they actually take, the things that they do, are not like the things they say that everybody else should do. Boston, have you heard this story? Boston mayor sends out a holiday party invite. Well, that's nice. I mean, come on, everybody likes to go to a good holiday party. We had a good holiday party. We're going to have another one on Saturday. And, we love to throw parties. Everybody likes to go to a party. Everybody likes to get invited. But the invite that went out went to everybody, but the party was only meant for elected officials of color. Okay, so, they have in Boston, they have some minority members, and they have, I think, 7 minority members and 7 who are white and 6 counselors of color is the way they put it. And so it's split down the middle. And so they went out to everybody in a big email blast. And then, they realized, oh, my gosh, we invited the white people to the party for the elected party, the party for elected colored people of color. And there we go. So we're not supposed to, that of course, became a sticky wicket. What do you do? This went out on behalf of Mayor Michelle Wu. She said, here it is. I cordially invite you and a guest to the Elected of Colors holiday party. And the city leader quickly drew criticism after it became apparent the email was sent to all counselors, 7 of whom are white. The invitation was only meant for the city council's 6 counselors of color. 15 minutes after the email was sent out, there was an apology and a clarification that the invitation was only meant for minority city councilors. However, she did not apologize for planning a party that excluded white city leaders. Now, just for a moment, let's just stop and think about what goes on in Democrat circles. All the Democrats, I mean, they are absolutely just crazed about, making sure that we have a DEI person on staff, diversity, equity, and inclusion. The idea here is that, everybody gets along and we have diversity and we include all people. We don't discriminate based on color or gender or your sexual preference or your, whatever, your whatever church you choose to attend. We just don't choose. We just include everybody because we're all one big happy family. And that's why, we think that this DEI thing is so big and we push it and we push it. Well, how did this one get past the DEI person that works for the city of Boston? They got to have one. They probably got 10 or 12 DEI officers. We want to make sure that we're in compliance on DEI. How did this get past the DEI person? Can you imagine the outrage if there had been a one that went out and said, well, I'm sorry, all of the elected members of color, you aren't invited to this party. Where this party was meant to be only for the white people. Can you imagine the hue and cry, the outrage that would have been had? And so, you know, they apparently did not see anything wrong with this whatsoever. I did say that here's the apology. I wanted to apologize for my previous email regarding a holiday party for tomorrow. I did send that to everyone by accident, and I apologize if my email may have offended or came across as so. Sorry for any confusion that this may have caused. Outgoing City Councilor Frank Baker, who is white, called the mayor's exclusion of certain members unfortunate and divisive, according to the Boston Herald. Citing recent tensions on the city council, Baker did not speculate about the reasoning behind the mayor's decision to host the party, but said he did not think it was a good move. I find it unfortunate that with the temperature the way it is, that we would have further division. I mean, what you had here was an opportunity to bring everybody together. What you had here was an opportunity to try to smooth over some of the rough edges that may be out there between members of the council. But no, what you did was you just elevated the conflict. Others said they weren't personally insulted by the decision and were ready to let it go. But I just, look, this would not be allowed in any corporation in America. This would not be allowed, anywhere really. Most of everybody would say, "I'm sorry, we're going to have a party, but you can't come because of the color of your skin." Now, outrageous, just completely outrageous. But this is again what happens when you have Democrats. They have, double standards. Don't do as we say you should do, but we're going to do what we think is right here, and we don't have to follow those rules. Again, double standards. The Fox, I love this. The Boston mayor's office did not return Fox News' request for a comment. I bet not. But what just shocks and amazes me is that this didn't register to them at all as something that was inappropriate. That there was no flag that went up, no flare that was said. Nobody within the group here thought this was a bad idea. Nobody stood up and said, maybe we ought to rethink this thing. Are you sure you want to do this way? Nobody. It got past everybody. Past the communications people, past the mayor, past everyone. And again, can you imagine the hue and cry, the outrage, the screaming, the wailing, and the gnashing of the teeth if the reverse had been the case? Just amazing. Just amazing. In other woke news, Virginia Supreme Court has backed a teacher fired for not using a student's preferred pronouns. On Thursday, the Virginia Supreme Court ruled that a high school teacher who was fired for refusing to use pronouns that didn't match a student's biological sex could have his lawsuit against the local school board reinstated. This from the Daily Wire. Peter Vlaming taught French in the West Point School District for 7 years. A female student claiming to be a male had a new preferred name. Vlaming used the new preferred name, but simply avoided using the student's preferred pronouns. The school demanded that he use the student's preferred pronouns even when the student was not present. Peter went out of his way to accommodate this student, as he does all his students. His school fired him because he wouldn't contradict his core beliefs, said Caleb Dalton of the Alliance Defending Freedom. The school board didn't care how well Peter treated the student. It was on a crusade to compel conformity. He works hard to make his students feel welcomed. In his French class, he always calls his student by the name they choose. He even used the student's preferred masculine name and was willing to avoid using pronouns in the student present, but he didn't want to be forced to use a pronoun that offends his conscience. So that's entirely reasonable, and it's his constitutionally protected right. Tolerance, after all, is a two-way street. The House of Representatives yesterday, this happened during our show yesterday, has condemned a trio of college presidents for their response to a rising trend of anti-Semitism on university campuses across the country. Reading from the Washington Examiner now, lawmakers voted 303 to 126 on Wednesday to agree to a bipartisan resolution condemning the rise of anti-Semitism on college campuses, particularly announcing the increased reports of hate speech or acts of violence that have occurred since the war broke out in Israel in early October. The resolution passed with overwhelming Republican support and a majority of Democrats voting against the measure, citing opposition that the vote was merely symbolic. Well, yes, it is symbolic that you can't, it is a resolution, not a law. It was merely symbolic. It did not go far enough to address anti-Semitism. You see, the Democrats are really squirming right now over this kind of stuff because they are looking at the young people that are out on the streets, and I think misguided young people. I think they're absolutely misguided. They're out there on the streets and they're talking about Israel is bad and the Palestinians are victimized. Well, it wasn't the Israelis who started this thing, but the Israelis are sure going to finish it. I promise you. But and they see these people out there protesting. And they realize, well, these are our people. These are the people who are going to vote for us. Young people traditionally do vote Democrat. And they're worried about Michigan, where then there's a lot of Arab American voters. Right now, Joe Biden, have you heard this? He's down by 10 points over Trump. Trump leads him by 10 points in Michigan, a swing state. So they're very nervous about all this. They don't want to raise any hackles. So they find some excuse not to vote for this resolution. They're trying to walk a very fine line there. And then, just so you know, from WKRN here in Nashville, new banned book hotline launches in Tennessee. You see, there are a lot of places where the parents have said, we don't want certain material in our school libraries. And they've asked that it be removed. And in most cases, school libraries have been willing to do that, saying that some of the material is inappropriate for young people. But now comes an organization that says, well, if you want one of these banned books, they call them banned. They're not banned. They're just not in. They're not in the school library where kids can see them. But the bottom line is they're saying if you're a young person and you want to see this book, contact us and we'll send it to you directly. Nice, really nice. 20 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Hey, listen, Legend Steakhouse, a great place to go for a steak this evening. If you're looking for a good, tasty steak, I mean, you just look up one of their locations and go by. You won't be disappointed. Those seasonings are really good. On Monday, that's the next coming Monday, they have a customer appreciation event where you can buy a $100 gift card and you get an extra $25 in gift cards at no extra charge. A lot of bang for your buck there. Listen, you might want to think about them for lunch. They got a meat and two. And I've told you about the meats, fried pork chops, smoky mountain meatloaf, fried catfish, slow-cooked pot roast with gravy, 14 vegetables and casseroles to choose from. It's home cooking, the kind that your mama used to make. In fact, these recipes came from Johnny's mom over 30 years ago. He borrowed the recipes, and he never gave them back. Legend Steakhouse has multiple locations across Middle Tennessee. Good food at a fair price. Listen, legendsteakhouse.com is where you go to find out all of their locations or to order some food online. A local Tennessee company that's been in business for 34 years. You're going to love your next visit to the Legend Steakhouse.
the latest in the war between Israel and Hamas in the regards to the military offensive plan for Israel and crime here in the volunteer state. That and more 30 minutes after the hour of 3 o'clock. I'm Mac Maury on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
There's old Mac Maury, and well, he's young Mac Maury, and there is Chris Webber pushing all the blinky buttons. Good to see you guys in your places, the A-team in their chair. I haven't really talked about the event we had here at Stately Wilson Manor last Saturday because, we were focused the next day when we got back on Monday with all the tornado coverage, and more on that in a moment. So, we were putting together, when you're having a party, you have to, in this time of year, you just have to set a date. Right. And you say, this is the date, and if you can make it, we'll look forward to seeing you. If you can't, we understand. And then if something happens, well, you may end up with a lot of food on your hand. I mean, and that was nearly the case because, as you know, Saturday night, we started having tornadoes popping up everywhere. Yeah. And as it turns out, most of the severe weather was through our area by about 7, and it looked like that was going to be the case. So I sent out a memo to everybody saying, hey, look, we're just going to start a little later. Just come on when you can. And I was completely, prepared for just a handful of people showing up because of the weather. And we did have some people who called and said, hey, I can't leave my kids with a babysitter with, bad weather like this. And as it turned out, not one person from the radio station could make it. I mean, wow. Chris, you had a family commitment, and Matt Murphy was on the air, with Ken Weaver, and it just it turned out that and Dan Mandis had a family thing that took him out of town. Yeah. So I decided we're going to throw another little bash this Saturday just for the WTN folks and.
A little more intimate gathering.
Yeah, more intimate gathering. That's right. We're going. I got a loan to buy more beef, so that because I know that's Ken Weaver. Yeah. Ken Weaver loves that beef tenderloin.
Hadn't thought about the Ken. Yeah.
And last time he had it, he went to town on it, and so I'm going to have some. I had to get some for Ken. But anyway, it was. I want to tell you though, we hired some people to help us out because when you're hosting like 100 people in your home. You don't want to be so tied up with, the food and the drink and all that you can't enjoy visiting with your guests. So we hired 3 people to come in and act as one as a bartender and then 2 waitresses. And then we had a guy, his name's Dusty Knapp, and he's a great piano player. And he came in and he provided, sort of background music on the baby ground. It was really nice. Turns out, When one of the waitresses came through the door, she knew our piano player, Dusty.
Okay.
And then Dusty pulled me aside and said, you may not know it, but one of your waitresses was on The Voice and has a tremendous singing voice.
Wow.
Yeah. And I said, well, what do you think she would, do something? She said, let me talk to her. I think we can work something up. So about 3/4 of the way through the party, I got everybody's attention, said, please come to the music room. And, it's right there in the front of the house. As you come in the front door, it's immediately to your right. And there's a big stairway that goes up to the second floor. So people were stacked up there all the way up the stairwell to look down on the music room. And she sang a version of Oh Holy Night that just tore the roof off the place. I mean, to tell you, it was spectacular. And I mean, it was really, I mean, when you have a party, you always say, well, we had a good time. This was a party that had a moment, and everybody was talking about this particular performance, and it was great. It was just a wonderful time with a lot of friends from around the area, and also some of my Watertown friends were there. And sadly, no W10 people were there, but we're going to make up for that on Saturday.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to having you guys come out to the house.
Yeah, me too.
That's right. And then Cabana Wife, we were sitting around thinking, well, we need to break down the bar and we need, renormalize the house after the party. I said, well, why don't we just have everybody over Saturday if there's any interest? I said, okay, so we'll just leave it up for a week.
Yeah.
So we got plenty of food and it'll be fun. And so it's sort of like our summer gathering.
Yeah.
That we do.
That's right.
Yeah.
So are we going to still jump in the pool then, or?
No.
If you
Well,
really
you
want
could.
to.
No, you actually could because it's still running and it's still warm water out there.
Hey.
Yeah, so bring your suit if you want to, but I won't be joining you. We look forward to seeing everybody on Saturday. Otherwise, then Sunday, last Sunday, I think I mentioned we went to a performance of afternoon performance of this walking tour that I've been working with the high school on here in Watertown. And then we went Sunday night. We went to see Ricky Skaggs and his Christmas show. That was a great show.
Was it? Yeah.
Phenomenal show. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm in the tank for my buddy Ricky Skaggs. I've long been a fan. I went with the first CD that I ever bought was a Ricky Skaggs CD. I mean, that tells you how much I think of him, and that was before I even became his friend. We've been friends now for about almost 20 years. So that was a great show, and got to go backstage. Cabana Wife had never been backstage at the Ryman.
Oh, I bet that was fun.
So we walked. One of our friends was playing keyboards for Ricky that night, and Jeff Taylor, and so we walked out to say hello to him as he's packing up his gear, and I said to Cabana Wife, "You're walking on sacred ground right now." And it really, when you walk out, you go, "Oh, wow, I'm walking where so many great performers have walked."
Mm-hmm.
And it is really quite a special place. And I've never gone to the Ryman and not enjoyed it because it's such a great venue.
Oh, yeah.
It's such a wonderful place.
Yep.
All right, 31 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
.331, I'm Mac Maury with your top story. 60 degrees in Nashville. A little bit warmer temps after some colder ones these past few days. Traffic and a weather forecast coming up in 5 minutes. During today's White House press briefing, National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby gave an update on National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan's current visits in Israel, including some conversations with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, which includes discussions for a new military offensive plan for Israel. Karen Travers has details.
The White House says National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu about the next phase of Israel's military campaign. National Security spokesman John Kirby.
Possible transitioning from what we would call high-intensity operations, which is what we're seeing them do now, to lower-intensity operations sometime in the near future.
A U.S. official says lower intensity operations would be smaller groups of elite Israeli forces that would move in and out of population centers in Gaza, carrying out more precise missions to find and kill Hamas leaders, rescue hostages, and destroy tunnels.
And 135 hostages there still in Gaza. Crime in Tennessee, a 2-year-old found unresponsive at a home in Putnam County on December 2nd. And 5 days later passed away has caused an investigation. Officials found that the mother's live-in boyfriend, Ashton Cole Sensing, threw this 2-year-old child against a wall, causing the child's death. Sensing admitted to getting upset at the child multiple times, which led to his act of aggression. On December 5th, the child died at the hospital. Sensing has since been on the run since December 6th, and I'm now getting a breaking news alert from News 2 that this man has now been arrested. Yesterday, 22-year-old Ashton Cole was arrested by the Putnam County Sheriff's Office. And now over to a holiday travel season, which is putting records in the books. Dave Packer.
Brace for crowded airports and planes this holiday season. Industry trade group Airlines for America predicting over 39 million passengers will travel on U.S. airlines from December 20th to January 2nd, a 16% increase compared to last year. AAA expecting the busiest holiday ever for air travel. United and Delta each expecting around 9 million passengers during the peak travel season. American expecting nearly 12.7 million. Looking for a deal? Cheapest day to depart, December 19th. The least expensive day to return, December 28th.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Let me tell you about the folks over at Busy Bee, and I'm going to repeat this story one more time. I got up on Saturday morning, and my water heater, it was about 20 years old, was just shot. We had no hot water, and, I'm not fond of cold showers. So, what did I do? Well, I did what you should do. I called that number in the jingle, 615-775-7833. I called the folks at Busy Bee HVAC, and they buzzed right over, and they got it fixed. I had a new hot water heater. This was no easy installation, but I had a brand new hot water heater up, running, and hot water coming through the kitchen and the bathroom by noon. I mean, really amazing. And, you say, well, Brian, you have a relationship with them. You do their advertising. Well, no, it's more than that. This is what they do for anyone. I called and explained the situation, and they said they would move heaven and earth. And I think they would do the same for you that they did for me. I really believe that. You should become a member of the Beehive Club. $99. Get 3 thorough maintenance services on your systems. One aimed at heating, one aimed at cooling, one aimed at plumbing. No overtime charges, 24/7, 10% off all repairs. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling is your official Rude Pro partner. Here's the number, 615-775-7833, online at busybeehvac.com. Hey, it's 39 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. It's the 14th day of December. Glad that you're with us on this. It's sort of nice day outside. It's got to get cold tonight. Well, by the way, there's a meteor shower tonight. And I think there was one last night as well.
Really?
Yeah. But they say between 10 and 2 in the morning is the time, 10 o'clock in the evening to 2 o'clock in the morning.
That's too late for me.
I know, me too. But they say it's that time of year. This is where I think it's called the Perseid meteor shower.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And I'm telling you, it's supposed to be really something. Like several, maybe you might see a bunch in an hour. So if you want to wish upon a falling star, this would be the time to do it.
I might sneak out for a minute or two.
If you wish upon a falling star, you might want to wish that we get through a safe holiday. Have you heard this? 3 federal agencies have issued a public safety warning saying that the threat of violence, especially by lone actors in the United States, is heightened through the upcoming Christmas and New Year holiday. The FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, and the National Counterterrorism Center have warned of lone actor violence targeting large public gatherings throughout the winter as a result of the conflict in the Middle East between Israel and Hamas terrorists in Gaza. Although this announcement is not in response to any specific plot activity, these targets remain likely attractive to lone actors inspired by a range of ideologies due to their accessibility and symbolic nature, the agency said in the release. Tuesday's warning updates previous alerts that were sent out on the October 10th and October 25th, and they say this all has to do with the sort of an upped elevation of threat matrix following the Hamas attack against Israel on the 7th of October. Various foreign terrorist media organizations have called for lone actor attacks in the United States. Racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists, those are called RMVEs. I didn't know they had that ethnically motivated violent extremists have increased calls for violence and celebrated attacks on the Jewish community. Lone actors may seek to disrupt or escalate violence at large gatherings, high profiles, symbolic or religious locations throughout the winter. Oh, joy. Such gatherings could become a convenient target for those inspired to commit violence against Jewish, Christian, Muslim, and Arab communities, read the warning. They say they have also observed an increase in hoax, bomb, and active shooter threats targeting synagogues across the United States, likely intended to disrupt service and intimidate congregants. So, honestly, I'll tell you that the concern I have is that it could even be, something other than that. Given the fact that we have so many people who are coming across the border that we don't know anything about. I'm going to say these numbers one more time. The number of known gotaways that have come across the country since Joe Biden took office is somewhere around 1.8 million people that we don't know. We don't know who they are. We don't know where they came from. We don't know what they're up to. We don't know what they might be planning. We do know that a great number of people who have been had come in contact with Border Patrol officials did found that they were on the terrorist watch list. Significant number. So how many of those who did everything they could to evade the entanglements with the Border Patrol or any kind of law enforcement, those are the bad people. And so you've got to wonder who's in that group of people. And by the way, I say 1.8 million. Those are the known gotaways. And how do you say, well, a known gotaway is we saw them on cameras, but we didn't have the manpower to go after them. Or we picked them up on sensors. They have ground sensors, and they know that people are coming through, but they weren't able to go out and check out, what was going on because they just didn't have enough manpower. They estimate, if you ask them, well, how many unknown gotaways are there? They said add 20% to that. So that would be, above 2 million. 2 million, folks. We don't know who they are. We don't know what they're up to. But I bet you a good number of them are up to no good. Oh, man, I tell you, this is the thing that keeps me awake at night. It really does. FBI Director Christopher Wray says there is an elevated risk of outside interference in the election of 2024. I think it's fair to say they are elevated from where they were before, Mr. Wray told a Senate committee last week. And to elaborate just slightly on that point, obviously we saw, and it's not disputed, that the Russians tried to interfere in the 2016 election and then continued. But what we've seen since then are other adversaries attempting to take a page out of the Russian playbook. He added that the FBI and other national security officials are keenly focused on the threat of potential election interference in 2024 elections. That includes focusing on the risk that foreign adversaries, whether it's Russia, whether it's China, whether it's Iran or others, would seek to interfere in our elections. This, according to the Epoch Times. It is not seriously disputed that our foreign adversaries have tried and are continuing to try to interfere in our elections, Mr. Wray said, who's been head of the FBI since 2017. By the way, this is not a government warning, but a warning from the folks at Microsoft. Several weeks ago, major software company Microsoft warned that China, Russia, and Iran are likely to engage in influence and interference efforts ahead of the 2024 presidential election. For Russia, Iran, and China, the next U.S. president will define the direction of conflict where wars might occur or peace might prevail, said the new report from the company. The three countries are unlikely to sit out next year's contest, and the stakes are simply too high. America's social media ecosystem is far more visual than in previous years. Memes, GIFs, podcasts, video clips, and influencers are a means of today's influence operations, not bots and pithy text posts. It added that over the past 3 years, the Chinese Communist Party has dramatically, listen to this, scaled up the scope and sophistication of its overt and covert influence activity around the world and expanded its covert social media operations, undertaking light influence activity during the 2022 midterm elections. The company has observed that some China-affiliated inauthentic social media personas and accounts infiltrating U.S. audiences and posting divisive and inflammatory content about American candidates. They want to have their say on our election. Neither the firm nor Mr. Ray made any mention of TikTok, a social media platform used by many younger Americans that is owned by a China-based company with reported ties to the Communist Party of China. Some Republicans have said that TikTok should be banned. I believe it should. I mean, it's hard to be a person who believes in free speech and say that, but I really do believe it is really going to be used in a big way to influence young people. And I think, probably that's why you see young people, we're all sort of shocked, stunned, and amazed that they're all of a sudden espousing these sort of anti-Semitic positions, and we wonder where that's coming from. We're not paying attention to what they're reading on TikTok, and that's immensely influential among young people. And by the way, if your kid's got TikTok on their phone, all of that contact information, all of your personal, I'm sure your kids have you in their contacts, right? Your information has been copied and is sitting on a server in China. You can just bet on it. And so, what I'm seeing here is we heard the other day Christopher Wray say all the lights are blinking red. Everywhere I look, it seems that the lights are blinking red. And he reminded us in a recent congressional hearing that it only took 12 people with box cutters to carry out the 9/11 attacks that killed 3,000 people. 12 people with very unsophisticated tools were able to pull off that kind of thing. So you've got to wonder, with all the people that are coming across our border that we don't know anything about, what kind of attacks are being planned. And I don't mean to be, I'm not trying to scare you, but I think you really need to think this through. You need to be prepared for something happening. I mean, when the FBI director goes into a congressional hearing with the cameras rolling and says, I am worried and all the lights are blinking red. Well, part of what that is he's trying to give you a heads up that, you need to be careful and keep your head on a swivel, which is always a good idea. But what he's also doing is he's covering his butt. He really is, because by doing that, and when something happens, and I pray it doesn't, but I fear it will, he can say, well, I tried to tell you, I didn't try to keep any of this a secret. We did everything we could do, but we were just overwhelmed by the number of people out there. I mean, it's been stated in 9/11, I remember it, that with the FBI and other intelligence organizations, they have to be right every time to avoid some kind of attack against the homeland. But the terrorist only has to be lucky once. And are they able to track everybody? No, they're not, because they don't even know who some of the people are that are in this country. Thank you, Joe Biden. Thank you so much for that wonderful border policy. Sleep well, America. 50 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I've had a financial radio show on WTN for over 20 years. But before that, for about the first 10 years of my career, I worked for a big investment firm. The name of the game was selling and getting assets under management. Then I was introduced to evidence-based investing, driven by academic research and not the sales process. Two big revelations. One was that investing in the stock market wasn't a gambling adventure. I had never thought about it that way. Think about when we invest, you're just gambling your money away and just throwing it into the casino. Well, investing in stocks is really just owning companies. And you think about some of the most successful people in the world are business owners, and you get to be a business owner when you invest in the stock market. It allows you to be part owner of the most successful companies in the world. The second had to do with how you were investing in those companies. In my former role, I was taught that my job was to use my skills to predict the future. Oh, crystal ball, what stocks or market segments are going to do best in the near future? If you listen to investing news sources and investment advisors, you'll find that making predictions is the rule rather than the exception. One recent study shows that 93% of professional managers underperformed the market over the past 15 years in their selection of large U.S. stocks. And it was over 95% that underperformed with small companies. Did you know that you could be tremendously successful as an investor without predicting the future? I believe the first step is education. However, it can't be just any education. We will help you understand what you're doing with your investments, why you're doing it, and what the basics are behind how things work. Then we make recommendations. I want you to be completely confident before you do anything. If that sounds like a winning game plan, set up a free 15-minute phone call at any of our 10 offices around Nashville. Go to paulwinkler.com to schedule a call today.
The House passes the NDAA, 2 teenagers at large after a carjacking here in Tennessee, and closing arguments out of Rudy Giuliani's defamation case. Those stories coming up at 4 o'clock right here. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, let's take a look at the markets. Another good day. Dow was up 158 points. The S&P up 12. NASDAQ up 27. Again, the Dow is in new record territory. And what does this all have to do with? I think it has to do with the fact that maybe the markets feel there's some good news that is coming with regard to interest rates. For more on that, let's turn to John Maxson from Beacon Capital Management. Hello, John. John?
Having some problems with our phones here, Brian. Working on
Okay,
that.
well, I apologize. Well, the bottom line here is that a lot of people are saying that they believe that interest rates, are not going to go down immediately, but they are going to go down next year. And as a result of that, they think that the market is going to flourish. There were also some surprises in retail sales, a little higher than were needed. We apologize that we have lost John, but that's our Beacon Capital report. You can learn more about all the folks over at Beacon Capital Management by going to their website, askbeaconnow.com. It is 58 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
Four o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 58 degrees in Music City. Traffic, complete weather forecast coming up in 5 minutes. The House of Representatives voted to pass the National Defense Authorization Act, or NDAA, today. It was a 310 to 118 vote. The bill authorizes $886 billion in national defense funding. It's an increase of $28 billion over last year. It also includes a short-term extension of Section 702 of the Foreign and Intelligence Surveillance Act. It's seen by a lot of Republicans as a threat to the privacy of ordinary Americans. Tennessee Representative Scott Desjardins was one who voted in favor of the measure, and he joined the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN and gave his reasoning for that vote.
Bottom line is we have to have a military that functions. We have readiness issues. We have recruitment issues. And yeah, it is too much money. I think we had a bill to audit the DOD a few years back because I think they waste money. But our number one priority, in my mind, as a government, is to provide for a strong national defense.
And this bill also guaranteed that promotions will be based on merit rather than any DEI reasoning. The vote for the next NDAA will be in about 4 months. Crime in the Volunteer State. One boy is now in custody. 2 teenagers are at large after allegedly carjacking a woman at knife point in a Nashville parking garage. It happened yesterday morning around 9 a.m. in a parking garage off of Charlotte Pike. The 3 suspects, a 12-year-old boy, 15-year-old boy, and a 16-year-old boy. One of them reportedly drove off in the Lexus while the other 2 ran away. And the 12-year-old was arrested last night at a Greyhound bus station. The victim's car was found at a store with a blown tire and body damage. These boys escaped the Natchez Trace Youth Academy in Waverly on Tuesday night by hopping one of those fences. They walked 6 miles until they could steal a separate vehicle at a gas station. And a federal jury in Washington, D.C., deciding how much the cash-strapped former mayor of New York should pay to 2 Georgia election workers for falsely claiming they took part in voter fraud. Stephen Portnoy.
With the judge having already determined that Rudy Giuliani defamed the women, the jury's deciding a penalty. Closing arguments featured the attorney for Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss playing this exchange Giuliani had outside court Monday with ABC's Terry Moran, in which the former mayor continued to insist that the women changed votes.
There's no proof of that. Oh, you're damn right there is.
Giuliani's attorney called his client's behavior irresponsible, but he also called the former mayor a good man and said the penalty should be measured.
And that is the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Hey, good afternoon. Hour number 2 now kicking off of The Drive. I'm Brian Wilson, and so glad that you're with us here on The Drive as we try to bring you news and information you can use. That's right. We're going to give you all the stuff that when you get home or wherever it is you're headed home, you'll have something to talk about. That's right. Let's give them something to talk about. We should play that Bonnie Raitt song as our theme song. Let's give them something to talk about. We'll give you something to talk about. You're going to love this. It's time for a 2024 update, ladies and gentlemen, because we are 1 month and 1 day away from the Iowa caucuses. That's 32 days from now. We will be caucusing. Well, the people in Iowa will be caucusing, and we'll be talking about it. And so, we start to look at these polls, anew with greater scrutiny. And I'm going to give you the big headline here. Trump is crushing it. I mean, that's the bottom line. If you look at the polls, I mean, there's going to be some states, like California, and it's going to be a blue state. And just as Tennessee is going to be a red state. But where you really want to try to buckle down and look at very closely as you do this is at the so-called swing states. The purple states, where sometimes it goes one way and sometimes it goes the other, and sometimes it goes left, sometimes it goes right, and that's what decides the election often is the outcome in these swing states. Well, the folks at Bloomberg Morning Consult, they have a poll out looking at some of the swing states, and the news is nothing but good for the former president and nothing but bad for the current president. You ready? I'm going to run through all of these, and I mean, you pay attention. This is interesting stuff. Let's start in Georgia. According to the poll, Trump would win in Georgia by 6. That's in a straight up challenge between Trump and Biden. Trump wins by 6. Not surprising. There's some very conservative areas in Georgia. But still, it's been very close in the past. If you look at a 5-way race where you add Kennedy, West, and Stein, and there may be more than 5, then Trump wins by 7. Most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time when you do the 5-way, Trump picks up, which means that the other people that are in the race would take more from Biden than they do from Trump. That's what that means. Okay, let's go now to the swingiest of all the swing states, Pennsylvania. If the election were held today, according to this poll, Trump would win by 2 in Pennsylvania. If you go look at the 5-way, this is one of the rare places where Trump does worse when you go to the 5-way. He would win by 1, but still win. Now, let's go to Michigan. This is pretty interesting because in some polls have shown us that Trump could win over Biden by 10 points. This poll doesn't replicate that, but it's still pretty strong. Trump 46, Biden 42. Trump would win by 4. If you look at the 5-way, Trump wins by 4. Moving on to Wisconsin. Trump 45, Biden 41. Trump up by 4. If you look at the 5-way, it's Trump up by 6 in Wisconsin. Nevada, Trump versus Biden, Trump wins by 3. If you do the 5-way, he wins by 5. Arizona, 46-42, Trump wins by 4. Arizona 5-way, Trump wins by 3. North Carolina, this is pretty strong for Trump. Trump plus 9. He would beat Biden in North Carolina by 9. And if you look at the 5-way in North Carolina, 5-way, that's Biden, Kennedy, West, and Stein. Trump wins by 11. So there is not any one of those 7 battleground states where Biden wins, given the current polling. Pretty amazing. Let's look at the general election. Rasmussen, the Rasmussen reports comes in right now. This is astonishing. If the election were held today, the Rasmussen organization believes that Trump would carry it big time. He would win by 10, which would would qualify as a landslide if that were to be true. And there are other polls that show it much tighter than that, but Rasmussen says it's a big win for Trump if the election were held today. Trump 48, Biden 38. If you go to a three-way, Trump, Biden, Kennedy, Trump wins by 8. Still that would still classify, I think, as a complete blowout. We do have some Tennessee numbers brought to us by the Vandy poll, the Vanderbilt University poll. I don't know about these Vandy polls. Sometimes I think they're very slanted, not so much in what the people say, but the way they phrase their questions sometimes. But let's look at it anyway, just for snicks and grins, okay? Tennessee, Trump versus Biden versus Kennedy. Trump wins by 19. We're a red state. There's just no doubt that Trump will win in that matchup. And then the question is, what will happen in the Tennessee Senate race, where it's Blackburn, the incumbent, versus Gloria Johnson? According to the Vanderbilt poll, Blackburn leads by 17 points. So, again, not surprising. What does this all mean? I mean, the big picture here, it means that, it's going to be, it will tighten up. It will tighten up as we get closer to election time. But, there is a trend. I always feel like I need to put this caveat in there because people say, well, I don't believe the polls. Well, here's what you should look at the polls, and this is how you should look at them. Not predictive of what happens in the future. Certainly not predictive. It's a snapshot of where the electorate is today. And the thing I always look at is the trend. Look at the trend. Look at the polls over time and which way are they going. And it's undeniable. There's no way you can come up with any other outcome except by looking at all the polls. You would say that Trump is on the upswing and Biden is on the downswing. And I'm telling you, it's not surprising because, as you know, the Biden administration is just their numbers on every level are not good. The job performance level, the economy level, people are upset about the border situation. The two big issues among most people, economy and the border. And those are two issues in which Republicans are on the right side because people remember Donald Trump's economy. You may have gotten irritated with a mean tweet or two, and at one time, you probably got irritated with the orange guy for saying things that irritated you. You thought he was a little bombastic, but by gosh, you were prosperous, weren't you? The economy was cooking, and you know what? That really is the result of policies that are established by the government. And the Biden administration has been nothing but anti-business, anti-energy. And doing things that completely, I think, hurt the economy. I mean, I heard today, Karine Jean-Pierre was talking about, we know the economy's, but we had Putin's war, and we're coming out of the. How long are you gonna lay on that one? But the fact of the matter is, if you want to blame what happened to the economy on Putin's war, that also falls at the feet of Joseph Biden. Because why was Putin adventurous in going into Ukraine? Because we have a weak president who bungled Afghanistan in a horrible way early days of his career. I'm telling you, this is the one thing I know is that every time a president comes on the stage, a new president comes in, they are going to be tested on the world stage, and everybody around the world is watching to see how it goes. There will always be some test of presidential mettle, M-E-T-T-L-E, mettle. And what happens is that, if it goes badly for that president, then around the world people say, well, okay, now we know what we're dealing with. They so bungled Afghanistan that I think there was adventurism on the part of Putin. But well, if the Taliban can roll these guys, we certainly can. The mighty Russian army, he's not going to do anything. He wants to get out of Afghanistan rather than fight terrorism. Well, he won't want to get involved in anything. We'll just go right across the border. In fact, there was a moment where the president said, well, maybe a minor incursion, we wouldn't do anything. Well, it was more than a minor incursion, wasn't it? Now, whether we go forward and continue to support Ukraine is another matter. But, I mean, if you want to blame the economy on Putin and his war, then you also have to lay some of that blame at the feet of Joe Biden, who was looked upon by Putin as a weak president. And he is weak. I mean, he's feeble. Can't even stay on his feet. You know what? I've gone back and looked at some of the early days of the presidency. It's sort of shocking to look at Biden in the early days of his presidency compared to Biden today. You know, they say it's a difficult job and it just wears people down. I mean, presidents, you know, they grow old in that office very quickly. They're not getting enough sleep, and they're you know, it's just a high pressure job every day. There's no job in America that's probably higher pressure than being the president of the United States, and it wears on you. And look, and he was already sort of feeble when he came in, but I mean, he looked stronger in the early days than he does now by a long shot. This job, he's not up to this job. It's wearing him down, and he was never up for this job, but he's certainly not up for the job now. And he is noticeably more weak today than he was when he took the oath of office. You know, back in the early days, he could rally for a few minutes. I haven't seen him rally in a long time. He looks like he's stuttering and stumbling worse than he ever has. So, you know, I don't have a lot of patience for, you know, the Democrats who say, well, you know, we had the pandemic. Okay. Yeah. And by the way, we had Putin's war, and it hurt us, and inflation and all of that. Well, I'm telling you, you get what you reap what you sow. And if you go around the world and you appear to be weak, your enemies on the world stage will take advantage of you, and that's what Putin did. That's, by the way, what the Chinese are doing. By the way, that's what the Iranians are doing. By the way, that's what the North Koreans are doing. Getting back to these poll numbers, really quite remarkable to see this happening so early. Now, it can change. It will tighten. It seems pretty clear by everything that I'm seeing here that Trump is going to be the Republican nominee. I can't imagine, maybe there is one, but I can't imagine it, a scenario by which DeSantis or Nikki Haley somehow, you know, overcomes Trump. Well, I mean, look here in Iowa, for example. Trump leads DeSantis by 37 points. How do you can't overcome a 37-point? I mean, it's never been done. Trump 54, DeSantis 17, Haley 15, Ramaswamy 7, Christie 4, Hutchison 1. That's Iowa, according to an Iowa poll. And that's very similar to what we saw yesterday or the couple of days ago with the Des Moines Register poll. So he's doing well. He's going to do well. He's going to be the nominee. By the time it gets to Super Tuesday, it's going to be all but over. I'll be very surprised if we still have more than one or two candidates running for the nomination. I think it will come down to Trump, DeSantis, and Haley. And, you know, but even if you take Ramaswamy's 7 and Christie's 4, that's 11, Hutchison 1, that's 12, and you add it to DeSantis's 17, you can't even come close to Trump, who leads DeSantis by 37 points. If everybody went to one candidate, if all the others went to one candidate, you still wouldn't have enough to defeat Trump. So it seems Trump's going to be the guy. And for now, it looks like that Biden's going to be the guy on the Democrat side of the equation. Shocking, I know. And I still have some concerns that when we really get down to the final push at convention time, that the Democrats might try to pull a switcheroo. We'll see how that all goes. Right now, 21 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. King and Associate Insurance is in Brentwood. They've been there for some 25 years as an independent agency, and that's something you want to consider. Why would you want to have an independent agent? Because they're independent. They have not one product, but many products they can look at. They can weed out things that don't really fit your need and zero in on the ones that really will, the policies that really will help you. So you get a lot more bang for your insurance dollar. That's right, more bang for the buck. That's what you want, right? And here's another reason why you want an independent agency like King and Associates. You call their number, 615-329-8121. You don't get a call center. You don't get a phone tree. You don't have to stand by and wait. You don't get that message that says, your call is important to us. Please stand by. If it's that important, why not answer it, right? Well, you call the number at T. King and Associates Insurance, and there's going to be a person who answers the phone, who will take care of your need and put you through to the right person who can solve or answer your question. Multi-policy discounts, they're big on that. And they want you to know that you can save 20, 25, 30, 35%. Huge savings. So get your royal review with King and Associates Insurance. Just log into tkinginsurance.com. That's tkinginsurance.com. King Insurance and Associates, you'll get royal treatment and great rates.
We really are passionate about our state. It's so beautiful, and we just want people and all Tennesseans to help us keep it that way. We really want to make sure that, our beauty, and from, west to east to even middle Tennessee, we want to make sure it's nice and clean for everyone to enjoy. I like to get people to volunteer and to get out there and keep our world clean, man. Litter's disgusting. No one likes it.
That's right. Yeah, if you ask my wife, I've always said, keep Tennessee beautiful. That's kind of been, I think I found a T-shirt or something a long time ago.
It's that marketing.
Yeah.
Really good job.
It's like,
yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no sense in throwing your trash out the window or when you're hunting or fishing, leaving the trash there on the bank or whatever. It's not worth it.
Currently, there are 88 million pieces of litter on Tennessee roadways at any given time in this state.
Wow.
And TDOT currently spends $23 million on picking up the litter, educating about the litter.
The Nobody Trashes Tennessee campaign, there's some great videos out there. And I was watching the litter lessons and the show and get to know the Red Plastic Cup. Tell us a bit about the campaign and some of those characters. That's pretty neat.
So Red Plastic Cup, he thinks he's a movie star. He thinks he's just the greatest thing ever. So he started off with a talk show, and then he got a movie. And in our movie, he got more characters, and we had experts, water quality expert was Sal, the smallmouth bass.
Yeah.
And his bodyguard is Trash Squatch. And if we can go into Trash Squatch a little bit too, but love Trash Squatch.
The United States putting some pressure on Israel to scale back their attacks on Gaza. Theft here in Tennessee and the latest money news. Coming up at 4:30, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey, Mac Morey's in the newsroom. You want to hang around at 5:25 is when we do the Mac Morey Wide World of Sports, and it's becoming a fan favorite. People really love that. By the way, can I just take a moment and ask you about your podcast, because you got a podcast that's now being highlighted on one of our sister stations here.
Yeah, it'll be on one of our sister stations, 104.5 The Zone. Yeah, it's called Behind the Box Score, and it'll be wherever you can find any of your podcasts. And yeah, basically trying to, if you're just a casual sports fan, or if you're a football or basketball nerd, I'm bridging that gap. We're going to have content for both of you guys that you can understand, and you'll leave satisfied.
So you're admitting that you're a nerd.
Yeah.
Is that what I drew from that conversation?
Yeah, I'm a little bit of a nerd. Yeah, just a little bit. We're embracing that, though, on Behind the Box Score. It'll be good.
Here's a question for you and Chris Webber. Are you a morning person?
I think I actually am.
I would say if I had to pick one or the other, yes, I would say morning person.
Well, I would say that I am as well, and the reason is that most of my career I have gotten up very, very early. I mean,
same.
I worked morning radio for a while, and when I worked in television, I did morning television for 12 years. So getting up like 3 o'clock in the morning became a habit, and so I think I am a morning person, and even though I'm working afternoons and evenings now. The reason I ask is there's a new story out that says that if you're a morning person, it's likely because you have Neanderthal DNA in your body.
Well, that checks out. Yeah, perfect. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Well, I mean, I got to tell you, Neanderthals have gotten a bad rap over the years because everybody thought they were brutish and they were yeah, that's right. And Neanderthals, as we have studied them more and more and more, we find out they were quite sophisticated in a different way. So what happened? Let me see if I can give. This is what scientists say. About 700,000 years ago, we had a split, and the Neanderthals moved into Eurasia, and the ancestors of modern humans largely stayed in Africa. Then about 400,000 years ago, the population split in two, and basically what happened is at one point, the ancestors of modern humans and the Neanderthals, they got together. And they interbred. And so modern human DNA contains fragments of Neanderthal DNA. We now know because they have been able to isolate DNA from Neanderthal bones. Amazing that they can do that. And so there's a guy named Dr. Capra, John Capra, a geneticist at the University of California, San Francisco. And he says they were intrigued to find that some of the genes from Neanderthal and Denisovians became more common over generations were related to sleep. For their new study published in the journal Genome Biology and Evolution, inside the cells of every species of animal, hundreds of proteins react with each other over the course of the day, rising and falling in a 24-hour cycle. They not only control when we fall asleep and wake up, but also influence our appetite and our metabolism. This has to do with circadian rhythms. Yeah. But they looked at 246 genes, and they found that the people who said that they were early risers and morning people, that self-identified as being a morning person, almost always carried this particular gene marker from Neanderthals.
I'm just a simple caveman.
Fire.
I don't know. It's just interesting. I think that's fascinating. I mean we as we get deeper and deeper into learning about DNA and exploring where the DNA came from, the stuff is getting really incredibly sophisticated. What they're finding is that we're mutts basically. All of us are mutts.
Yeah.
We got a little DNA from here, a little DNA from there. The next thing we'll be dragging our knuckles again. I don't know.
Some of us still do.
Some of us still do. 30 minutes now past the hour, 4 o'clock on Super Talk.
.30, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Currently 57 degrees on Music Row. We got a weather forecast. The latest traffic report lets you know how the roads are just ahead, 5 minutes. More pressure tonight from the United States on Israel to scale back their attacks on Gaza. Andy Field has the latest from Washington.
The president's national security advisor talking directly with Israeli leaders on the growing number of Palestinian casualties.
We will continue to expect that Israel conducts its operations in accordance with the law of armed conflict.
Major General Pat Ryder saying the U.S. cannot confirm reports that half of Israel's air-to-ground munitions that have hit Gaza are unguided, imprecise dumb bombs.
And there are 135 hostages still being held in Gaza. Theft in Tennessee. 48-year-old Tashius Therese Pleasant is facing charges after stealing from one of her patients. Pleasant worked as an in-home caregiver, was found making personal purchases totaling more than $20,000. This was between 2022 and 2023, and was using the victim's funds for these purchases. Pleasant was booked at the Rutherford County Jail on a bond of $52,000. And now over to some money news. Daria Albinger lets us know what happened today on Wall Street.
Stocks rose on hopes interest rates may have topped out for now. The Dow jumped 158 points and closed at its second straight all-time high, 37,248. The Nasdaq added 28 for the day, and the S&P closed up 12. Moderna jumped 9.2% after reporting encouraging data on a study of its treatment for high-risk melanoma. The gains followed a big rally Wednesday on excitement that the Federal Reserve could cut interest rates early in the new year. Stocks have been rising since October on hopes that inflation is heading toward the Fed's 2% target rate. Economists had warned that too many interest rate cuts could push the economy into a recession. A couple reports indicate the economy may still be stronger than analysts had forecast. One shows shoppers spent more in November than October. Another shows that fewer workers applied for jobless benefits last week.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
It's 37 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, and you're listening to The Drive on this 14th day of December. Glad you're with us. Really. And we're by the way, we're still just sort of, we're floating on a cloud. We are. After having, I think I'm correct in saying every single member of our staff, on the air staff, have been honored to be among the top 20 talk station hosts in the country. Everybody made the cut.
That's true.
That's really quite an accomplishment. And the reason is because we have great listeners who find favor with what we do here at this radio station. And we want to say thank you. I never want to take you for granted. I'll take Chris for granted because, that's just
got to
the
get
kind
in
of
line, buddy.
I know, but I won't ever take the listener for granted. I promise. Fallout yesterday from Hunter Biden's Dog and Pony show over at the on the Senate side of the Capitol at the swamp site, where he said the following. Oh, hang on. I'm sorry. I want to make sure you hear all of this. Let's try that one more time. Here's what he said.
In the depths of my addiction, I was extremely irresponsible with my finances. But to suggest that is grounds for an impeachment inquiry is beyond the absurd.
Hold on a minute. He's not the focus of the impeachment inquiry. And this is not about his finances. Oh, and it is indirectly, but it's really the whole thing that's going on here is the investigation is whether or not his dad violated the rules and the law, and by basically accepting a bribe in exchange for certain policy considerations when he was vice president. That's what it's about. So when he says, well, my business dealings should not, lead to an impeachment inquiry. Well, it's part of an investigation, but you're not the subject of the investigation, despite what he'd have you believe.
But to suggest that is grounds for an impeachment inquiry is beyond the absurd. There is no evidence to support the allegations that my father was financially involved in my business because it did not happen. There is no fairness or decency in what these Republicans are doing.
Well, okay. Yeah. Well, he feels like he's being picked on. Poor little Hunter Biden. Imagine that. He doesn't pay his taxes, and when people start to ask questions and they start digging around and they find out all this money coming from oligarchs and bad business dealers all around the world, and it ends up in accounts and then it's transferred into his dad's account, he really thinks that's just inappropriate. How dare you suggest there's something wrong going on here? How dare you? Have you no standards, you Republicans? Yeah, that's what we're trying to get at. Now, here's the thing. He went out of his way. By the way, the narrative has changed so many times. My son wasn't taking money from China. Well, it turns out he was taking money from China. I wasn't involved at all. Well, it turns out we have photographic evidence and a whole lot of emails that suggest that the then Vice President Joe Biden was actively interacting with the business dealings of Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden was going out there and he was the bag man. What they were selling was access to Dad. I'll go collect the money, Dad. And as one of the whistleblowers, one of the IRS whistleblowers, Gary Shapley, said on Fox, I think it was yesterday or today, you don't have to see, the president of the United States doesn't have to have received a financial benefit for it to be bribery. In other words, the money doesn't have to land in his account. If it lands in the account of his family, it's the same thing. Here, listen to what Gary Shapley said.
Well, it's just part of the shifting story from DOJ and the Biden family attorneys where at the beginning it was, I've never talked to my son about business. That's been proven patently false by evidence and testimony we provided. Then it moved to he's not in business with him, and now we're into he's not financially connected to the businesses. So you don't have to be financially connected to a business in order to be a part of that business. And
hold it, did you hear that? He knows. This is a guy who worked for the IRS.
You don't have to be financially connected to a business in order to be a part of that business. And what President Biden was basically doing through Hunter Biden was allowing Hunter Biden to get these deals where there's no discernible actual product being produced. So it's really just peddling of the influence.
And the access. The other IRS whistleblower was asked about a closed-door deposition that's happening today from someone at the DOJ who he says stood in their way as they tried to do an investigation.
The FBI agents who drafted that affidavit, they believe that they had sufficient evidence, probable cause, to support including political figure one in that affidavit.
Political figure one is Joe Biden.
And you look at what that related to, Burisma, access to Joe Biden and access to the administration. And there was ample evidence that was included in that affidavit that supported including political figure one. That has a waterfall effect on the investigation because those emails that we're searching for might not come through to the team. So it has a down the road effect of not following normal leads.
Not following normal leads. Legal expert Jonathan Turley wanted to weigh in about the things that happened yesterday in that bizarre press availability that Hunter Biden had. You know, I've told you, he did it on the Senate side because if he'd done it on the House side, he's currently out of compliance with a subpoena to appear before the House Oversight Committee, and the Sergeant of Arms could have compelled him to testify. He showed up on the House side, so he showed up on the Senate side. He wouldn't he wouldn't come over on the House side. Come on over here and say that. I dare you. And here's Jonathan Turley talking about how bizarre he thinks this whole thing is.
But I got to tell you, even though Washington is known as a theater of the absurd, I've never seen anything like what we saw with Hunter and his lawyers today. I can't come up with a legal rationale for what they did. I mean, he effectively engaged in legal self-immolation. I mean, you had two choices today. You could go in and testify, you can appear and testify, or you go in and you don't testify. There is no third flavor on this ice cream stand. You don't get to go in front of the Senate and literally mock Congress. And people have said, well, this might not be enforceable because the vote came later. There was an impeachment inquiry going on. The Democrats started an inquiry without a formal vote. There's no requirement for a formal vote. But more importantly, the subpoena came from the Oversight Committee, which has independent subpoena authority. So in my view, he's in flagrant contempt of Congress. And, you know, I've represented the House of Representatives. I have a lot of affection for that body. And I've rarely seen such open contempt for Congress.
Well, okay, the contempt of Congress proceedings have been initiated against Hunter Biden. This is from Breitbart. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer and Judiciary Committee Chair Jim Jordan initiated contempt of Congress proceedings against Hunter Biden after the president's son failed to appear for a subpoena closed-door deposition yesterday. If prosecuted and convicted for contempt of Congress, Hunter Biden's punishment could be a fine of $100,000 and imprisonment. A deposition is a standard procedure used by congressional investigators, and Democrats use depositions in their investigations, including the Adam Schiff impeachment inquiry and the partisan January 6th committee. House Oversight Committee ranking member Jamie Raskin emphasized the importance of standard closed-door depositions at the time. We will not provide special treatment because his last name is Biden, Comer and Jordan said. As our committee, we're today prepared to depose Hunter Biden. He chose to make a public statement on Capitol Hill instead, where he said his father, Joe Biden, was not financially involved in the family business dealings. Exactly how is Joe Biden involved, they questioned. Evidence showed Joe Biden met with Hunter Biden's business associate, and his name was at the center of the family business strategy. He was the product. He was what was being sold. I mean, they didn't give, Burisma did not start handing out millions of dollars to Hunter Biden because they thought Hunter Biden, who was an absolute crack addict at the time, was a real asset to their operation. It's just, I mean, come on. I mean, it's sometimes, you have to be obtuse not to see how this thing was working. You send money to Hunter Biden and you get access to dad. You get, and you get consideration. By the way, I've said it before. It's something everybody knew back in the Obama days that Joe Biden sat down to lunch with the president once a week. It was I'm told, the only appointment that was never violated. That when unless you were out of the country on some kind of international trip, there was a time every week where the president and the vice president sat down to dine together and to catch up and to talk about things. So think about this. You're Burisma. You want to have an impact on policy in the United States. You give Hunter Biden some money. Dad gets involved. Dad takes it to the president of the United States. And, that's that. I mean, that's really worth millions of dollars. To just have Hunter Biden there giving you advice is not worth squat. I mean, he couldn't even function at the time. Well, he functioned in some form because apparently he spent a lot of money on hookers, I guess. I don't know. But I mean, he wasn't somebody who would bring value that was worth millions of dollars. What were they selling? They were selling access. What were they buying? They were buying influence. It was an influence peddling scheme. Let's not try to overthink this thing. It's pretty clear what it was. Golly. So Biden is now, with a vote that took place yesterday to formally authorize the impeachment inquiry, it means that Joe Biden is officially now a target of the House impeachment inquiry. And there was no requirement that there be a vote because they've done it before without a vote. But this now gives the investigation its strongest underpinnings. And as they say, House Republicans are now in the strongest position to hold Biden accountable. It was a critical step to do this, and now we have done it. They have witness testimony and bank records showing that millions of dollars were flowing to the Biden family from foreign adversaries. And you just heard the IRS whistleblower saying, yeah, okay, if you want to make the claim that Dad was not financially involved, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You were selling your dad's influence as a product. And that is an impeachable offense. And don't let the Democrats try to tell you otherwise. 50 minutes now past the hour, 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. How are you faring in the rough and tumble market? Up some days, down the next. That's sort of scary, isn't it? The experts at Beacon Capital Management understand that can be frightening. But here's the thing. Beacon Capital Management has a plan to assess where you are and then give you guidance, mid-course corrections that might be needed. Wouldn't it be great to have peace of mind that you're on the right path as you head toward a retirement? Beacon can provide you that reassurance. It starts with a simple phone call, 615-488-9303. At the end of the process, you'll be able to rest easy knowing you have a plan that meets all your retirement goals. Replace the worry with confidence that you're on the right path. Again, the number, write it down, 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon stand ready to take your stress away, and you can always learn more by going to their website. Here it is, askbeaconnow.com.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I've had a financial radio show on WTN for over 20 years. But before that, for about the first 10 years of my career, I worked for a big investment firm. The name of the game was selling and getting assets under management. Then I was introduced to evidence-based investing, driven by academic research and not the sales process. Two big revelations. One was that investing in the stock market wasn't a gambling adventure. I had never thought about it that way. Think about when we invest, you're just gambling your money away and just throwing it into the casino. Well, investing in stocks is really just owning companies. And you think about some of the most successful people in the world are business owners, and you get to be a business owner when you invest in the stock market. It allows you to be part owner of the most successful companies in the world. The second had to do with how you were investing in those companies. In my former role, I was taught that my job was to use my skills to predict the future. Oh, crystal ball, what stocks or market segments are going to do best in the near future? If you listen to investing news sources and investment advisors, you'll find that making predictions is the rule rather than the exception. One recent study shows that 93% of professional managers underperformed the market over the past 15 years in their selection of large U.S. stocks. And it was over 95% that underperformed with small companies. Did you know that you could be tremendously successful as an investor without predicting the future? I believe the first step is education. However, it can't be just any education. We will help you understand what you're doing with your investments, why you're doing it, and what the basics are behind how things work. Then we make recommendations. I want you to be completely confident before you do anything. If that sounds like a winning game plan, set up a free 15-minute phone call at any of our 10 offices around Nashville. Go to paulwinkler.com to schedule a call today.
The House passes the NDAA. A former Laverne police officer that was fired for allegedly being involved in their recent sex scandal has now filed a lawsuit against the police department, and a 12-year-old boy arrested 2 teens at large in Tennessee. Those stories and more coming up 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
You know, Karine Jean-Pierre seems very weary these days at the White House briefing, and she was talking about, well, Republicans are getting ready to go home, and they haven't done anything about Ukraine.
And they're leaving. House Republicans are leaving this week to go, enjoy a nice holiday, right, as most Americans should. But What happened to the funding to Ukraine? You just asked me about Ukraine. They haven't been able to get that done. They haven't been able to help us fix what's going on at the border. They haven't been able to get that done. They haven't been able to start a conversation on how we're going to avert a shutdown in January. They
So
haven't been able
she
to do
doesn't think that the Republicans should.
There's been zero.
Should the Republicans should go on a break right now? But then she was asked a few minutes later, well, what about the president? Is he willing to come back to Washington? Well, I can't talk about that. It's 58 minutes past the hour now of 4 o'clock on Super Talk.
Five o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 53 degrees on Music Row and expecting some little bit of warmer temperatures here tonight. And as we head into the weekend starting tomorrow, maybe a wet weekend, we'll let you know. Latest traffic report, weather forecast on the way in 5 minutes. The House of Representatives voted to pass the National Defense Authorization Act, or NDAA, today in a 310 to 118 vote. The bill authorizes $886 billion in national defense funding. It's an increase of $28 billion over last year. It also includes a short-term extension of Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. It's seen by Republicans as a threat to the privacy of ordinary Americans. Tennessee Representative Scott DesJarlais voted in favor of this measure and defended that decision right here on WTN on the Matt Murphy Show.
So we go in there. Mike Johnson's up against Chuck Schumer, really Mitch McConnell, Hakeem Jeffries, and Joe Biden, and somehow you expect us to win. We got what we can get. We're going to go into this process again. We'll start debating the next NDA in about 3 months. We will try to get rid of all those things. But in the meantime, like I said, how many military guys did you talk to and ask them what their opinion was? I know the conservative discussions because I've been one of those guys for 13 years.
And the bill authorizes a 5.2% pay raise for members of the military. It's the largest raise for service members in over 2 decades. Right now in Middle Tennessee, a former Laverne police officer who was fired after allegedly being involved in a recent sex scandal at the police department is now suing the city, the mayor, the HR director of the department, and the former police chief. Lewis Powell said that he was given unfair treatment based upon his race. He claims the other officers who are allowed to stay on the force are white. Powell claims that he casually dated a woman within the department but did not violate any city policies while doing so, and he wasn't disciplined if he ever did. Powell's asking for a jury trial back and front pay and $3 million in damages plus attorney fees. 5 officers were fired, 3 suspended after an investigation found that a group of Laverne officers were allegedly engaging in sexual relations with a fellow officer while on duty and also sending explicit photos to one another. And staying in Tennessee with a crime story, one boy now in custody, 2 teenagers are at large after allegedly carjacking a woman at knife point in a Nashville parking garage. Channel 4's Michael Warwick brings us the full story.
A camera caught this picture of the 3 suspects accused of taking the victim's Lexus at knife point after 9 a.m. Wednesday. Metro Police say the 3 boys, 12, 15, and 16, escaped a youth facility in Waverly Tuesday night, walked 6 miles to a gas station where they stole a different car and made it to Nashville. Police arrested the 12-year-old Wednesday night at the Greyhound station.
And the victim's car was found at a store with a blown tire and body damage. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
It's 6 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock. Hour number 3 now underway here on The Drive. I'm Brian Wilson, and it is 10 shopping days left in Christmas, till Christmas. Have you gone out and done your shopping yet, Chris?
Sure, yeah.
And 32 days until the caucuses of Iowa. That's right, Iowa, where the corn is high as an elephant's eye. You don't believe that's a lyric, do you?
I've never heard that. No.
You look it up.
Okay.
Would you just right now while I'm getting ready to set up this next segment, you look that up and tell me if it's not what you get when you say corn is high as an elephant's eye.
Oh, there it is. Oh, what a beautiful morning.
Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful.
Oh, it's from
day.
Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where the wind comes streaming down the plains, I can't remember. Okay, let's move on. I don't know why I got up. Let's go to the swamp. Got a lot of swampalicious stuff to talk about. The House today, and it was a controversial move that completely set Matt Murphy off on a tangent today. He got irritated by this thing. The House of Representatives overwhelmingly approved Congress's $886 billion defense policy bill just before leaving Washington for the holidays. They're on the way back home right now, the House is. And by the way, I'm sort of glad they are leaving town because it backs up what they said they were going to do. They said, look, we're not giving you any more money for Ukraine until you agree to fix the border. And then they said, call us when you're ready to talk. And they left town, but not before passing the NDAA, passed 310 to 118. Now, what is controversial about this is, well, it's a lot of money. And then, if you're one of those budget hawks, you have to understand that we're spending a lot of money that we don't have. But one way or the other, the real bone of contention is a reauthorization or an extension of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act's FISA Section 702, a tool that allows the intelligence community to spy on foreign nationals outside the U.S. without a warrant, even if the person on the other side of the communication is an American citizen. Critics say the tool has been abused by the intelligence community to spy on Americans. And while its supporters argue it's a vital tool for preventing terror attacks, the Section 702 extension was opposed by both conservatives and progressives who have said it impedes civil rights, including the right to privacy. Controversial. It has always been controversial. This was a post 9/11 piece of legislation and a creature of that era, and it keeps getting extended and renewed and up, and it needs to be reviewed ever so often. And we have found that the FBI has been abusing, at times, this FISA ability, and they have spied on Americans, and that's why so many people are upset. I suspect, I'm surprised actually that the speaker went along with it, but you have to understand that the speaker is now a member of the Gang of Eight. What is the Gang of Eight? There are 8 people on Capitol Hill who get all of the intelligence. They get the same briefings that the president gets. All of the national security briefings, they have the highest security clearances. There is nothing that they can't be told. And they get daily briefings, just like the president does. And so I have a feeling that what happens is you get a new speaker, and all of a sudden he's getting the look of at all the intelligence. And I would imagine that somebody came to him, as we've talked about it earlier. The FBI director says all the lights are blinking red right now. He says he sees red lights everywhere and is very concerned about an attack against the homeland. And not surprisingly, that comes at a time when the borders are wide open. And I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole again, because you know how I feel about that. But we don't really know who's in this country right now, and we're not keeping tabs on it. And that's why I think the FBI is concerned. I suspect that the intelligence community went to the speaker and said, okay, if you don't renew this, here are the investigations we will have to stop. And they laid it out for him in no uncertain terms. I think that's probably what happens. I've always suspected this is the case, that they use these briefings to get what they want by, saying, okay, just understand, Mr. Speaker, if you take this action and there's an attack against the homeland because we had to stop our investigation because we didn't have the authority to continue it, it's going to be on you. I think that's what happens. So a lot of people are upset about this. Hardliners within the GOP also criticized the NDAA, the product of compromise with the Democrat-controlled Senate, for removing culture war provisions on transgender surgeries, abortion, and other issues that were present in the House version. The Senate took it out. And, you know, that irritates a lot of people on the conservative, and I understand why. I get that. You know, this is a difficult one because you do not want to not provide for the national defense. And, you know, the House can have its opinion and the Senate can have its opinion, and you know, eventually something has to pass. And to do that, both sides lose stuff. And this is what the conservatives lost. Some of the cultural warrior things. And I get that. It irritates me too. But the way you solve that problem is you win more elections. You take over the Senate. You take over the House. You take over the White House. And then, you know, you can straighten this crap out in about an hour. But it's hard to do when one body is controlled by the Democrats and the other body is controlled by the Republicans. And this is always going to be the case. You're never going to get a full loaf. It doesn't mean you don't fight for it. But at some point, you know, you have to fish or cut bait. And I know you sound, well, Wilson, you're a creature of the swamp. No, I mean, I just think at some point, especially when you're talking about national defense, you have to take the best thing you could get and go with it and move on. There'll be other opportunities. And by the way, I think honestly, the way things, the 2024 election is shaping up, it's entirely possible we're going to control all three bodies. I know. I'm an optimist. The Senate will return next week. They have already decided they're coming back. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer decided today to keep members in town next week. Now, the House has gone home, but the Senate is going to stick around, saying in remarks on the floor that negotiators will have more runway to seek a deal that's been elusive for members, trying to find out if, you know, this border Ukraine deal can come together. I don't know. We'll see. I'm glad the Republicans are standing their ground. House Republicans and Senate Republicans are standing their ground saying no money for Ukraine, no more money for Israel until you fix the border. And, you know, so, you know, let's fix the border. That's not an unreasonable request. But the Biden administration, they are so disingenuous about the way they talk about this issue. So disingenuous. They say, well, you know, we put forward a proposal and they ignored it. They didn't want anything to do with it. You know, so it's not on us. Well, you know, that's unadulterated. And I'm going to tell you why. Because they did put forward a package in the first days of the Biden administration. And their package was completely unacceptable. Because it basically said, you know, we're not going to change our policy of letting anybody who wants to come to this country in violation of the law. We're going to ignore the law. We're going to do this. And what they wanted in their package was people to process more paperwork, not enforce border security. So, you know, they're very disingenuous and say, well, we offered up our plan and they just ignored it. It's not our fault. Well, the plan that you submitted was completely unacceptable. It was rejected out of hand. Just because you proposed something doesn't mean that it was a serious proposal, because you knew what the response was going to be. They were never going to go for that. But now you try to hide behind, well, you know, we tried. You know, it's those doggone Republicans. They won't go along with it, and it's their fault. No, it's not. It's not. Well, it is your fault. By, you know, not being serious by proposing something. Sure. You know, that's an old Washington game. Throw out something that you know the other side is going to reject, and then you hide behind it. Schumer said members should expect to vote on a shell bill that would eventually serve as the vehicle to the supplemental package, including a potential border deal. I read a story just a moment ago during the commercial break, Kirsten Sinema of Arizona saying she sees the bones of the deal coming together. She thinks it can happen. We'll wait to see. This, of course, story that I'm giving you this information comes from thehill.com. Also in the swamp, right across the street from the Capitol and part of the swamp, you could say, in Washington, Supreme Court. The Supreme Court announced it would take a case involving the availability of an abortion-inducing drug known as mifepristone. I can't say this. Mifepristone. I believe that's correct. A U.S. District Judge ruled in April that the FDA's approval of that drug was done improperly and had to be suspended. The case went through many appeals, ended up in the U.S. Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, and they ruled in August that that drug can remain on the market with restrictions. That decision on hold, however, because the Supreme Court has not yet decided whether it will fully consider the matter until today. And they said they would. So the High Court will take this up. The court has agreed to hear the cases brought by the Department of Justice and Danco Laboratories, which distributes the drug, consolidating them into one case. The case will be heard this term, which means we'll see another abortion ruling this year, likely in June. The court declined to hear the case brought by the Alliance for Hippocratic Medicine, though. In May of last year, someone had leaked the draft opinion of Dobbs, which was used to overturn Roe v. Wade, with the decision ultimately being handed down in June of last year. So another abortion-related case now on the docket at the highest court of the land. By the way, speaking of the Supreme Court, the judge presiding over former President Donald Trump's 2020 election subversion case in Washington says she now lacks jurisdiction over the case due to his presidential immunity claims being considered by the Supreme Court. This from the Washington Examiner. U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan wrote Wednesday that her order automatically pauses any further proceedings that would move the case toward trial or impose additional burdens of litigation on the defendant because the Supreme Court has agreed to decide this very key matter. Former president appealed an order from the judge that rejected his motion to dismiss the election subversion case, asking that she postpone all activity in the case while the appeal proceeds. Going to the U.S. Court of Appeals? No, they're going to go straight to the Supremes. The High Court agreed to expedite the matter and told Trump to respond by Wednesday of next week. The lower court judge says nothing's going to happen in this particular case until the Supreme Court decides. When will they decide? I don't know, but I think it may come sooner rather than later. This is the kind of case worthy of the Supreme Court where there is a conflict and in opinions, and it has something to do with a pending election. I think they're probably going to move fairly quickly. Trump has maintained he is immune from the charges special counsel Jack Smith has levied against him because the alleged misdeeds he committed took place while he was still in office. He's supposed to have, he says, presidential immunity. The decision means everything in Trump's Washington, D.C. trial, and that's on hold until the Supreme Court resolves the immunity issue. High Court has not agreed to take up the case on merits, but could soon after Trump's response next week. It could rule the appeals court should weigh the matter first before it comes back to the Supreme Court, but it sounds like the lower court judge is just going to sit back and wait for some movement by the Supremes. 21 minutes now, past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk. All right, Wellness Institute of Nashville. Here's their number, 615-246-5009. Now, 9, it's 5009. Now is the time to leave the pain in 2023 and get on the right path to be pain-free in 2024 by going to the Wellness Institute of Nashville. You start with a phone call. Set up your appointment, 615-246-5009. You see, the 2023 special's in its final month. You should take this chance to get rid of pain for only $23. Have you been diagnosed and getting treatment but still have pain? Well, here's something to consider. Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Ashley have tremendous success in providing correct or missing findings from an MRI report. The things the other folks miss. They can provide you with their sense of it and give you a thoughtful and customized treatment plan. If you've had your have you had your MRI report explained to you in detail? If you're a new patient, bring in your MRI for analysis, or let Dr. Mitchell and Dr. Ashley do their own x-rays. Then you'll get your first treatment for $23 with state-of-the-art therapy and equipment. You're no more than a number at the Wellness Institute of Nashville, and they care deeply about getting you pain-free. I tell you, I'm not only am I there's somebody who reads the commercials, I'm a client, and he's helped me. I can tell you that for sure. 615-246-5009. Learn more at painisbad.com.
Awaken 180 is my solution for weight loss.
Laughing, learning, friendships. Not the words normally associated with trying to lose weight. But with Awaken 180, you're not trying. Weekly weight loss while gaining the tools to keep it off. Free support for life, friends for life. Learn how over 17,000 clients succeeded with the solution for weight loss.
Awaken 180!
An update on the Israel-Hamas conflict, a 2-year-old dead and a man paying the price for it in Tennessee, and another major tech company facing layoffs. Those stories coming up 30 minutes after the hour of 5 o'clock. I'm Mac Maury on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat.
It's time for a fan favorite, Mac Maury's Wide, Wide World of Sports, or alternatively, sometimes we call it the Wide, Wide World of Sports with Mac Maury. But one way or the other, it's Mac Maury. He's the star of the show. You know him, you love him, you can't live without it. Here's Mac Maury, ladies and gentlemen.
Woo! No matter what the title is, we have fun. That's what matters.
That's right.
We have a good time.
And I eat up like half of your thing doing the intro.
We got to get them hyped up. The crowd's waiting for the intro.
Yeah, that's right. We got to get people amped up. That's right. Okay. Well, I missed the memo. So what are we doing?
Okay. Well, I know it's against your guys' wishes, but I started, the reporting on the NBA in-season tournament before it began. I laid out the rules. It's the first annual NBA in-season tournament. They're trying something new, and I figured it just ended. I'd be remiss as a reporter, as a journalist, to not finish off the story here and let these listeners know how it went. So just the Los Angeles Lakers won the in-season tournament, but really what I'm looking at here is just, was it a success for the NBA? Did ratings go up? Were people actually tuning in to November and December basketball? Because that's not something that a lot of people do unless you're a nerd like me. Viewership for the Los Angeles win over the Indiana Pacers. They faced each other in the IST is what they're calling it, which they need to change the name. IST is not great. 5.68 million viewers. They averaged more like 4.5 million viewers. That's up 64% from last season's NBA Saturday primetime on ABC average. So they're up quite a bit just as far as that game's concerned. A lot of people were tuning in. They cared about the result of that game. They actually wanted to see, okay, who got the trophy? Who won? So that was really, really good. And you see something that I saw, you start in the group stages, each of the 30 teams get put in 6 different groups or whatever it may be. Then you go into the knockout stages after you make it out of your group stage. And something that was really cool is there were point differential contests in order to make it to the next round. Part of the tiebreakers were going, well, I won this game by 28 points. This team won this team by 24. So that way a blowout was always kind of fun because the team who up by 30 points is going, well, we kind of actually need to win by 33.
Let's keep piling on.
Yeah, so let's keep going. So that way you're not bringing in the 11th guy off the bench with 4 minutes left to go. Your star players are remaining in the game and they're pedal to the metal trying to score points because they actually care about how much they win by. It's not like, all right, we're up 25 with 4 minutes. Let's clock it in. So that was actually another fun little wrinkle to the tournament, I thought.
So he's made it more interesting games.
Yeah, exactly. Because even though the game may be over, you may have the other team who's down by 30 going, you know what? Screw this team. We're not going to let them beat us by 33. We know they need 33 points to win tonight. Let's keep trying. Even though they know they're going to lose, they're just trying to maybe keep that other team from advancing in the in-season tournament. So
it really does add a lot of new wrinkles to the game, right? And it sounds, in one way, it sounds about as complicated as voting on the Masked Singer, which I've been trying to figure out for forever. But I mean, it's complicated, but nonetheless, it is apparently with the fans, it's a hit, you're saying.
Yeah, I think it was a hit. I mean, even for a guy like me who loves the NBA, I don't find myself drawn to it until maybe January, really February, especially with college basketball. But even the NBA, I don't find myself drawn to it to the new year. But I was finding myself turning on these games no matter what, trying to see who the result. I mean, I'd still pick football over basketball, but it did help. It did help on a Wednesday or a Tuesday where I wasn't watching any football. I was going, okay, what's the in-season tournament games tonight? And I think a lot of other NBA fans were too. It shows by the numbers.
It's an interesting concept that they came up with, and obviously it did work. But also, if you step back and really think about it, it's kind of a shame that they had to come up with something like this to get people to watch the NBA in the first half of the season, right?
100%. To add any sort of relevance to the first 40 or 50 games, they had to do this. And I think they could probably improve it. I think they could probably delay this like a couple more weeks. I mean, because the season started, and within the first 2 weeks, they had in-season tournament games beginning. And I was like, we just started. Let's get a little bit more into the meat of the season. But I think overall, for the first year, I'd call it a success for the NBA.
All right. Well, there you go. Well, it's time now for him to take off his sports hat and put on his news hat, because news is next here on Super Talk 99.7.
.5:30, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 52 degrees, a sunny day in Nashville. Full weather forecast. Got the latest traffic report, too, on the way in 5 minutes. During today's White House press briefing, National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby gave an update on National Security Advisor's Jake Sullivan's current visit on Israel, including conversations with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. It includes discussions for a new military offensive plan for Israel. Here's Karen Travers.
The White House says National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu about the next phase of Israel's military campaign. National Security spokesman John Kirby.
Possible transitioning from what we would call high-intensity operations, which is what we're seeing them do now, to lower-intensity operations sometime in the near future.
A U.S. official says lower intensity operations would be smaller groups of elite Israeli forces that would move in and out of population centers in Gaza, carrying out more precise missions to find and kill Hamas leaders, rescue hostages, and destroy tunnels.
And there are 135 hostages still being held there in Gaza. Over here in Tennessee with a crime story, a 2-year-old was found unresponsive at a home in Putnam County on December 2nd. 3 days later, passed away. It ended in the arrest of a man found to be responsible. Through the investigation, officials found that the mother's live-in boyfriend, Ashton Cole Sensing, threw the 2-year-old against a wall, causing this child's death. Sensing admitted to getting upset at the child multiple times, which led to acts of aggression. On December 5th, the child died at that hospital. Sensing has been on the run since December 6th and then was arrested yesterday. And the latest tech company to face major layoffs is autonomous car firm Cruise, a division of General Motors. Mike Dubusky.
Cruise is laying off over 900 workers, just about a quarter of the company. It comes as California regulators investigate the crash of one of Cruise's self-driving Chevy Bolts, which in October struck and injured a pedestrian. Company leadership says the cuts allow Cruise to focus on delivering improvements to tech and vehicle performance.
And earlier this week, the board of Cruise dismissed 9 company executives. That is the latest news, weather, traffic next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Folks, I want to talk today about gold. Gold is used as money for millennia. It's a tried and true way to store value consistent across generations. And some have observed that generational wealth, has 3 components: land, art, and precious metals. Well, I don't know anything about art, and I can't afford land right now, but precious metals, gold, silver, platinum, these are things you can hold in your hand. You can actually physically touch them, and they have real value. Inflation is currently decreasing the value of your money, and gold and silver can be a safe haven during uncertain economic times. You can learn all about the importance of owning precious metals by going to Nashville Gold and Coin. Maybe you have some gold that was given to you that you inherited, and you're not sure what it's worth, or you're curious about precious metals and want to learn more. You can learn all about the importance of owning precious metals by going to Nashville Gold and Coin. They're always available to discuss your options and educate you about the precious metals market. So do what I did. Go to Nashville's real money source, Nashville Gold and Coin, and set up your one-on-one appointment by going to NashvilleGoldandCoin.com. 38 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, and you're listening to The Drive. Glad you're with us here. We got all kinds of stuff to talk about here. It is, I'm telling you, it's the Christmas season. We have to, Chris, we have to plan to do our annual thing about, I've been saving a story till you got back about the songs, the Christmas songs of the season that people just hate. And there's a whole list of them, and they actually break it down by region, like which region of the country hates which song the most.
Interesting.
It's interesting. It's sort of interesting. I think they missed it because they didn't put the 12 Days of Christmas on there, which is,
that one's tough.
I mean, that's tough. I mean, I'm of the belief that we should do, they should have stopped at 5 golden rings.
That's enough.
Because, that's sort of like the best part of the song, 5 golden rings. And then, the rest of it, I could do without the maids a milking and the lords a leaping and the drummers drumming and all of that.
What about the ladies dancing?
The ladies dancing. Well, that week, maybe we could add one more in.
All right.
Fair enough. Anyway, so we'll have to do that. And that's always a fun thing. It is the Christmas season. I'm looking forward to seeing you and Mac over at the house. Because it was the weirdest thing. It's like the stars aligned in a bad way that you could make the party we were doing on Saturday. And there were all legitimate reasons. I mean, you had your mom and dad in town, and your son was in a play, and you needed to be there for that. And I completely get that. And then Ken Weaver called and said, I'm going to be, doing storm coverage, so I'm not going to be able to make it. And then, Matt Murphy ended up crashing the boards to do some storm coverage that night. And then this, that, and the other. And Dan Mandis had to go out of town on a family matter. And so it's nobody. But I don't think I ever got an explanation from Mac.
You were going through. I was going, did I text him if I wasn't going or not? I don't believe I did. Here we go.
Yeah. But we decided that we're going to get our gang together on Saturday. I mean, I still have liquor.
That's
enough for me.
Big thing.
So we were thinking before we break down the bar and return things to some semblance of normalcy around our house, that we would just, we'd ask if everybody wanted to get together. So everybody's going to, it turns out that everybody can just about be there. Just about everybody.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it'll be fun. We'll see you guys on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Looking forward to it. Come hungry. Because
no
I had to take out a small bank loan because I found out, Cabana wife, she comes to me and she says, what do you want to do for the party? I said, well, everybody loves that beef tenderloin thing that you do. And it's a big roll of meat. And we went through 3 of them. And it wasn't until after the party that Cabana wife told me how much one of those rolls of meat cost. I couldn't believe it. I mean, it's amazing. It's the best beef I've ever eaten, but there's a good reason for it. There's $200 a piece.
It better be good.
So,
gosh,
because Ken Weaver is coming, and because Ken Weaver has just loves the beef tenderloin, I went to my banker and I took out a small loan, and there will be beef tenderloin.
Nice.
And shrimp.
Right. Ooh.
I mean, I know. Do you need anything more than that?
I'm good.
Sadly, there will be more than that. There'll be a lot more than that because Cabana wife doesn't know when to stop. But we'll love having you guys over. Let's talk a little bit about EVs. We've talked a lot about EVs and how they really aren't getting the job done for so many people, and so many people are walking away from the concept of having a purely electric vehicle. But what's interesting is the Biden administration keeps pushing and pushing and pushing. We're going to have EVs, even though the people don't want them. The dealerships, they've got them coming out their ears. They got so many EVs on the lot, they can't get rid of them. Nobody will buy them. I mean, the good news is if you want an EV and it fits your needs, you could probably cut a pretty good deal on that. Every EV, though, is subsidized by the taxpayer pretty much in one way or another. And so, the EVs, that may be what the Biden administration wants with their Green New Deal thing, but it turns out that America is not in sync with the Biden administration on this, and neither are the car companies. I mean, they started down the path. They thought EVs were the answer too, I guess, because they're making major improvements, and they're building more and more cars, and they're phasing out their gas-powered vehicles. Well, maybe not so fast on that. from the Free Beacon. Biden says the EV market is rapidly growing. Ford just cut in half its electric truck production. Top American automaker announced production cut just hours after the White House talked about how there is growing demand for EVs. Well, look, you can't expect a company like Ford and Chevy or Stellantis or whoever it is to build cars that they cannot sell. That's against everything that business is about. You don't give people a product they don't want. You listen to people, you say, what do you want? And then you listen to them and you give them that product. That's the free market. That's the way it works. But they've been artificially forced to move toward this EV thing before people are ready, before we have a grid that can handle it. I mean, so many things are not ready for electric cars. The main thing is they don't go as far as everybody says they're going to go. I mean, they just don't. And they don't work well when it's hot, and they don't work well when it's cold, and you can't find chargers for them. And if you try to make a trip beyond just going back and forth to work every day, you're going to find yourself in a world of hurt at some point with an electric vehicle. Imagine that you get stuck in traffic in a snowstorm in an electric vehicle. What are you going to do? You're in a mess. People will die. I mean, seriously, they'll freeze to death. I mean, I remember my niece and nephew came with one time was coming to visit. This is back in a ways back when we lived in Texas. And they were coming from Alabama, and they got to Wichita Falls, and there was an ice storm, and they were stuck on the road for 12 hours. I mean, it was rough, and you know they had to go out and find food and come back, and they had to get gasoline because they couldn't, they had to restrict how long they could run the heater because they didn't want to run out of gas. And it was a bad deal. Can you imagine that in an electric car? Can you imagine, like we have had from time to time, like when a hurricane comes in and they evacuated Houston, said everybody in Houston go north, and it turned into just an incredible traffic nightmare, and people were running out of gas. What are you going to do when you start running out of electricity? You're going to have to carry a generator in your trunk? That sort of defeats the purpose of it, isn't it? I don't know. Anyway, we're not ready. The White House released on Monday a Bidenomics report that touted the rapidly growing electric vehicle market, and just hours later, Ford announced plans to cut the production of its electric truck in half, citing insufficient demand. The report, which came from White House chief economist Heather Boushey, you got to really wonder if Heather's is really in tune with what's going on in the world, said U.S. consumer market for EVs is rapidly growing, and touted President Joe Biden's effort to meet that growing demand by setting ambitious goals for accelerating EV transition. And at the same time, Ford was saying, we are cutting the number of electric pickup trucks that we're going to make in half. Ford threw cold water on those claims hours later when a leaked memo from the automaker revealed its plans to produce just 1,600 F-150 Lightnings per week in 2024. That's exactly half of what they had planned to make. We'll continue to match production with consumer demand. Well, if there's no demand, then there's no need to make the trucks. Ford's announcement comes as a major blow to Biden, who has centered his modern American industrial strategy on American electric vehicle production. While Biden says that production push will build a clean energy economy with high-paying jobs, automakers disagree. Electric vehicles require fewer parts, thus fewer workers to build. The supply chain for those parts is dominated by China. As a result, the auto industry has pushed back on Biden's plan to phase out gas-powered vehicles, arguing the plan will prompt both job losses and price hikes. Whatever happened to letting the market determine? If you build a great vehicle, people will come and buy it in droves. If you buy something that meets the need of consumers, which is the way the free enterprise system should work, you listen to the customer, you find out what they want, you build that product, you will have people beating a path to your door. If you're giving them something they don't want, they're going to turn their nose up and say, nope, no thank you. This is bad. and this is bad. And the Biden administration is going to continue to try to push, but I mean, it is clearly not going to go that direction. Other economic news: SpaceX, Elon Musk's SpaceX. You ready for this? Hit $180 billion in value. $180 billion. And the company is discussing an agreement with investors to sell stock from insiders in a purchase offer at $97 a share. And this makes it bigger, I think, than Verizon. Bigger than, what was the other one I saw somewhere in there? But it makes it a monstrous company. It's bigger than Boeing. It's bigger than Lockheed Martin. It's bigger than Northrop Grumman. Well, as far as we know. Bigger than Verizon. Bigger than AT&T. His space company. Wow. That's really something, isn't it? It really is. And by the way, just to sort of hit this one more time, because there were other things going on yesterday, and I think we gave it short shrift, and I don't want to do that. The Fed did say positive things about the end of rate hikes. No more rate hikes, we think, and probably 3 cuts in 2024. I'm not surprised because it is an election year, and the Fed always, it's not supposed to be a political institution, but I think it's become that over the years. And it looks like when you get to pick the chair of the Fed, they're going to give you the policies that you want by and large. And what the Fed is going to do is cut interest rates so that people will, think that the economy is getting better just as it's time to go to the polls. So 3 cuts may be coming. The markets like it, and they've been in the green. But I smell sort of a rat. I think that they are doing the timing of these rate cuts. I mean, I want the rate cuts. Everybody needs to have lower interest rates. It's a mess. But I think they're politically timing these things, maybe doing them quicker than they would normally come because of the election season. It's 5:51 now on Super Talk 99.7. Big news from DT McCall. If you've been thinking about buying a gun safe or putting it off, now is the time. Gun sales are sales tax free. Gun safes, rather, are sales tax free. That's right, sales tax free. It's hunting season, so be sure you're keeping your gun safe when you're not in the tree stand with the gun safe from DT McCall. DT McCall is the largest Liberty Safe dealer in Tennessee. I want to say that again. The largest safe dealer, Liberty Safe dealer in Tennessee. Why? It has to do with free delivery and setup. Others charge $500 for delivery and setup of the big models, $300 for the smaller models. Well, DT McCall & Sons delivers every safe free, every time, period, never a setup charge. Security is important these days, and gun safes can be used for valuables, cash, jewelry, important documents, wills, deeds, car titles, anything that has value you can keep in your gun safe and keep it safe from theft or fire. So save some big bucks now on your gun safe when you shop at your local DT McCall's. Go to dtmccalls.com for locations and information.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I've had a financial radio show on WTN for over 20 years. But before that, for about the first 10 years of my career, I worked for a big investment firm. The name of the game was selling and getting assets under management. Then I was introduced to evidence-based investing, driven by academic research and not the sales process. 2 big revelations. One was that investing in the stock market wasn't a gambling adventure. I had never thought about it that way. Think about when we invest, you're just gambling your money away and just throwing it into the casino. Well, investing in stocks is really just owning companies. And you think about some of the most successful people in the world are business owners, and you get to be a business owner when you invest in the stock market. It allows you to be part owner of the most successful companies in the world. The second had to do with how you were investing in those companies. In my former role, I was taught that my job was to use my skills to predict the future. Oh, crystal ball, what stocks or market segments are going to do best in the near future? If you listen to investing news sources and investment advisors, you'll find that making predictions is the rule rather than the exception. One recent study shows that 93% of professional managers underperformed the market over the past 15 years in their selection of large U.S. stocks. and it was over 95% that underperformed with small companies. Did you know that you could be tremendously successful as an investor without predicting the future? I believe the first step is education. However, it can't be just any education. We will help you understand what you're doing with your investments, why you're doing it, and what the basics are behind how things work. Then we make recommendations. I want you to be completely confident before you do anything. If that sounds like a winning game plan, set up a free 15-minute phone call at any of our 10 offices around Nashville. Go to paulwinkler.com to schedule a call today.
6 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. 51 degrees on Music Row. Latest forecast and a traffic report upcoming in 5 minutes. Starting in the nation's capital, the House of Representatives voted to pass the National Defense Authorization Act, or NDAA. It was a 310 to 118 vote. The bill authorizes $886 billion in national defense funding. It's an increase of $28 billion over last year. It also includes a short-term extension of Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. It's seen by a lot of Republicans as a threat to the privacy of ordinary Americans. Tennessee Representative Scott DesJarlais was one who voted in favor of the measure. He joined the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN today and gave his reasoning for that vote.
Bottom line is we have to have a military that functions. We have readiness issues. We have recruitment issues. And it is too much money. I think we had a bill to audit the DOD a few years back because I think they waste money. But our number one priority, in my mind, as a government, is to provide for a strong national defense.
And the bill also guaranteed that promotions will be based on merit rather than checking any DEI box. The vote for the next NDAA will be in about 4 months. Crime in Tennessee. One boy is now in custody. 2 teenagers are at large after allegedly carjacking a woman at knife point in an Asheville parking garage. Channel 4's Michael Warwick brings us the whole story.
A camera caught this picture of the 3 suspects accused of taking the victim's Lexus at knife point after 9 a.m. Wednesday. Metro Police say the 3 boys, 12, 15, and 16, escaped a youth facility in Waverly Tuesday night, walked 6 miles to a gas station where they stole a different car and made it to Nashville. Police arrested the 12-year-old Wednesday night at the Greyhound station.
And the victim's car was found at a store with a blown tire and significant body damage. Right now in the Mid-State, a former Laverne police officer who is fired after allegedly being involved in a recent sex scandal at the Laverne Police Department is now suing the city, the mayor, the HR director of the department, and the former police chief. Lewis Powell says that he was given unfair treatment based on race. He claims the other officers who are allowed to stay on the force are white. Powell also claims that he casually dated a woman within the department but did not violate any city policy while doing so, and if he did, he was never told about it. Powell is now asking for a jury trial, back and front pay, and $3 million in damages plus attorney fees. This is from the incident where 5 officers were fired, 3 suspended, after an investigation found that a group of Laverne officers allegedly had sexual relations with a fellow officer while on duty and sent explicit photos to one another. That is the latest news, weather, and traffic next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Good evening, everyone. It is 7 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. It's dark outside. Time to turn on the Christmas lights and any inflatables that you have, because it's really not a really good look when they're just sort of a big puddle on the ground. And then go around and turn on the lights on your Christmas tree. For us, that's like a 45-minute ordeal.
I would imagine, yeah.
We have 11 Christmas trees. Actually, I think, I honestly, if you count some of the smaller trees, it's probably more like 15.
Good grief.
I know, it's insane. It's just insane. But I got to tell you, you drive up past my house, and there's a gleaming, shimmering Christmas tree in every window. And it is really quite impressive, I will say.
That's nice, yeah.
The house looks so festive, and I am so lucky to have a woman who has this amazing touch. She really is. I mean, I've said it before, I'll say it again. You walk into some of these rooms and you feel like you're walking around in the Macy's, that like this, these trees are so beautiful that they look like they should be like in the front window at Macy's. But I mean, really, it's quite, getting them all turned on is quite the task. I should hire somebody part-time, just go around and do that. Let's see. I was going to go, I will go a different direction here in just a moment, but I was just watching during the commercial break. I was looking at the monitor and I was they were replaying some of the sound of Hunter Biden over at the swamp site yesterday. And when he made that surprise appearance, decided not to go testify like he'd been subpoenaed to do, and just said, I want to do it on my terms, not on your terms. Well, that's not the way it works, Hunter. Here's a little bit of that from yesterday.
In the depths of my addiction, I was extremely irresponsible with my finances.
Well, hold on a minute. In the depths of my addiction, I was extremely irresponsible with my finances. And if you listen to what he's saying here, he seems to be saying, because I was addicted, you can't hold what happened against me. Well, that's... Well, we have a real fine word for that here in the Deep South. Nobody tied Hunter Biden's hands behind his back and force-fed him cocaine. Nobody locked him in a room and forced him to spend time with hookers. The bad behavior was a choice that he made. Look, I mean, he said I was addicted. Well, that's all good and fine, but that doesn't mean you're just absolved of everything that happened simply because you had an addiction problem. You made choices. And this is the problem. Nobody ever holds him accountable for the bad choices that he made. And that's why he made bad choices. You see, in life, it's not that hard, really. Each day you get up and you face the day. And I promise you, if you make more good decisions than bad decisions in a given day, you don't have to have a perfect record, but if you're batting to say, 75% of the time I do the right thing and about 25% of the time I mess it up, you're still going to come out ahead of the game, right? You come to these major inflection points in your life, you've got to recognize them and you've got to make good decisions. If you make good decisions, good things will come your way. If you make bad decisions, bad things will come your way. But, he should not be absolved of any wrongdoing simply because he made the decision to take drugs and screw with hookers. I mean, come on. So, I don't buy that at all. It irritates me. And, now he still wants to be treated specially. You got to cut me a break here. I'm not going to go behind closed doors and do your little deposition. I want to do it in public so I can turn it into a dog and pony show. Everybody else has had to go and do the private behind closed door deposition. There was one today. That's the way it works. You go behind closed door. Donald Trump's kids did it twice. So, shut up. Be a man. Own it that you need to make some good decisions in your life and you need to own up to the mistakes that you've made. Instead of hiding behind your daddy and your high-priced lawyer. It just irritates me so much that this guy thinks, well, I'm special because of my last name. He says they're picking on me because of my last name. No, I would say that you've gotten so many breaks in your life because of your last name. You've never been held accountable for your decisions. So, own up to it, man. Go behind closed door and answer the questions. Quit being a wuss. Just saying.
In the depths of my addiction, I was extremely irresponsible with my finances. But to suggest that is grounds for an impeachment inquiry is beyond the absurd. There is no evidence to support the allegations that my father was financially involved in my business because it did not happen. There is no fairness or decency in what these Republicans are doing.
What, to try to find the truth about whether or not we have a president who's compromised? There's no decency in that? No, that's exactly what they should be doing. Because there's a lot of evidence that there was a quid pro quo. There's a lot of evidence that you were selling influence around the world. I don't know how you can look at the evidence and come up with any other, sort of assessment other than that. And by the way, this whole thing about, my dad has never been financially involved, that's about the third iteration of what he has had to say about all this. Whistleblower Gary Shapley said on Fox News today, there's no need to be financially involved to have committed a crime. I mean, the courts have done this time and time again. They've said, look, in fact, there have been cases, for example, with judges. Judges, did things and they didn't directly receive the money, but somebody in their family did. You're still guilty of bribery. I mean, it's the law on that is really, really clear. And Gary Shapley, the whistleblower at the IRS, who knows a thing or two about prosecuting financial crimes, says that you don't have to be financially involved.
Well, it's just part of the shifting story from DOJ and the Biden family attorneys where at the beginning it was, I've never talked to my son about business. That's been proven patently false by evidence and testimony we provided. Then it moved to he's not in business with him, and now we're into he's not financially connected to the businesses. So you don't have to be financially connected to a business in order to be a part of that business. And what President Biden was basically doing through Hunter Biden was allowing Hunter Biden to get these deals where there's no discernible actual product being produced. So it's really just peddling of the influence.
Yeah, peddling of the influence. It's influence peddling. That's basically bribery. Hunter Biden was the bag man. The product was Joe Biden. And as I've said before, Joe Biden, Vice President of the United States in the Obama administration, carried a lot of weight in that administration. And by the way, it's well known, well established that once a week he would sit down and have lunch with Barack Obama. It was said to be the one thing that never got canceled, that without fail, the vice president and the president would sit down once a week to compare notes and talk about things going on. So you're Burisma, you want U.S. policy to go your way, you pay money to Hunter Biden. Dad, takes this to the luncheon with Barack, and all of a sudden the thing that the Burisma wanted is U.S. official policy. Get rid of a prosecutor that's bugging us. I mean, come on. And Barack Obama may not have even known about Hunter Biden's activities, although I think that's hard to believe. I think that's stretching it. Jonathan Turley says this dog and pony show that happened yesterday, where Hunter Biden shows up in the swamp site with this high-priced lawyer, Abby Lowell, and puts on this little dog and pony show, saying, for example, "Oh, I'm prepared to come and testify in an open session. I just don't trust you people to do the behind the closed doors deposition. You'll twist my words." What he knows is in a public hearing, the Democrats will get 5 minutes every time a Republican gets 5 minutes, and so you can't get very far. And if you know how to play this thing, Republican asks a pretty good question, and then you filibuster for 4.5 minutes, and you don't have to really answer the question. And then the next thing you go to a Democrat, and they got 5 minutes to make a dog and pony spectacle out of the thing, turn it into a circus. So, that's why he doesn't want to go behind closed doors, because they will actually have to answer questions. They're open-ended. It's not going to be just an hour. It's not going to be 2 hours, but whatever it takes to get all the questions answered. And as I said, the Democrats made the Trump kids come twice. Jonathan Turley says that he was very surprised by the actions that took place yesterday with Hunter Biden going to the swamp site and having that little press conference.
But I got to tell you, even though Washington is known as a theater of the absurd, I've never seen anything like what we saw with Hunter and his lawyers today. I can't come up with a legal rationale for what they did. I mean, he effectively engaged in legal self-immolation. I mean, you had two choices today. You could go in and testify, you can appear and testify, or you go in and you don't testify. There is no third flavor on this ice cream stand. You don't get to go in front of the Senate and literally mock Congress. And people have said, well, this might not be enforceable because the vote came later. There was an impeachment inquiry going on. The Democrats started an inquiry without a formal vote. There's no requirement for a formal vote. But more importantly, the subpoena came from the Oversight Committee, which has independent subpoena authority. So in my view, he's in flagrant contempt of Congress. And, I've represented the House of Representatives. I have a lot of affection for that body. And I've rarely seen such open contempt for Congress.
Yeah. Open contempt. I have a lot of contempt for Hunter Biden and his feeling that he's special and somehow should be getting some kind of special treatment that nobody else gets. That's Hunter Biden's main problem. Nobody has ever held Hunter Biden accountable. And beyond that, remember, this is not an investigation of Hunter Biden. It's an investigation of Joe Biden. Hunter Biden just happens to be somebody who has information that's pertinent to the investigation. All right. By the way, Karine Jean-Pierre, she's so weary these days. She's like shakes her head and bats her eyes, and she can't believe she has to suffer these questions.
And they're leaving. House Republicans are leaving this week to go, enjoy a nice holiday, right? As most Americans should. But what happened to the funding to Ukraine? You just asked me about Ukraine. They haven't been able to get that done. They haven't been able to help us fix what's going on at the border. They haven't been able to get that done. They haven't been able to start a conversation on how we're going to avert a shutdown in January. They haven't been able to do that. And so, look, there's been zero evidence. Zero evidence. You can ask me about engagement and what the president has done with his family in conversation, but there's no evidence. But there's no evidence.
Yeah, there's
no evidence that the president has done wrongdoing. There's none. Absolutely none. None. And that is just a fact. You've heard it from Republicans themselves. So they're wasting their time. Instead of doing the work on behalf of the American people, they go after the president's family. That's a waste of time.
No, it's not a waste of time. It is absolutely not a waste of time. You can have your assessment, but you can't ignore the fact that Hunter Biden was selling influence and was selling the product, and the product was Joe Biden. Because they sure as hell didn't get anything by having an association with Hunter Biden otherwise. He was strung out on drugs. You're going to pay, so you're a big company, you're going to pay millions of dollars to the Biden family for what? The advice and counsel of a drug addict? It's just ridiculous. It's just beyond belief. All right, 21 minutes now, past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk. Grace Point Healthcare delivers medicine affordably with menu-style transparent pricing. You'll know how much it costs before the care is delivered. They have smart care plans. Just $69 a month, you get unlimited office visits and free basic labs for the entire year. And because they treat the entire family, even newborns, they offer family plans as well. You really should think about this. If you marry a smart care plan that I've talked about, with your high deductible insurance, maybe catastrophic care insurance plan that you've been forced to take, well, this could save you and your family hundreds of dollars and give you great 1-2 punch coverage. At Grace Point, they take their time with each patient. They see you the same or next day. There are no long wait times or crowded wait rooms. They treat naturally whenever possible, and it is a military vet-owned practice. Some of the reasons why it's been voted the best primary care provider year after year after year. And Grace Point wants you to know they believe strongly in freedom of choice when it comes to vaccine for you or your children. Grace Point Healthcare on Main Street in Franklin. Here's the number. 599-6868. That's 599-6868 to schedule a visit. "26 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. Brian Wilson in the chair. Let me talk a little bit about blinking red lights. No, not your Christmas lights on your twinkly little tree. These are a different kind of blinking red lights. These are the kind that we are seeing now as you look at the threat matrix. I mean, our intelligence agencies, the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, they provide information. And it all goes into something that is called the threat matrix. They all take all of this information. They look at this, they look at that, they merge the information together, and they paint a picture of what threats may be out there. And we had the FBI director say the other day that he thought that he was seeing blinking red lights everywhere, a suggestion that there are many things going on in the world right now that makes him nervous. He talks about, what's going on in Israel and Hamas, and that could perhaps motivate lone wolf attacks against this institution or that institution, and said we need to be on high alert. And then he was asked in a briefing about, well, what about the southern border where 2 million people have come across the border we don't know anything about? And he said, clearly, we would like to have better understanding of who has come into this country, but he said he wouldn't go out there and throw the administration under the bus, but he did admit that is a concern. We don't know who these people are. We don't know where they came from, but I have a feeling that if they're dodging the police, they're probably not very nice people. They probably don't have our best interests at heart. So there it is. And again, the FBI and the DHS is warning of a heightened threat through the holidays. This according to Newsmax. And they say since October 7th, it really has ramped up. They're monitoring a bunch of stuff. And they believe that, there could be gatherings that become convenient targets for those inspired to commit violence against Jewish, Christian, Muslim, or Arab communities. And further, we have also observed an increase in hoax bomb and active shooter threats targeting synagogues across the United States. So watch it. I mean, what you're seeing here is the director of the FBI covering his butt, because when he does this, what he's doing is he's saying, look, if something happens, I don't want to be, I don't want it to be said that I didn't raise the flare, that I didn't say that there's a concern. It doesn't take many people, as he said in the hearing the other day, to create mayhem. He pointed to the 9/11 attacks, 12 people with box cutters. He is absolutely sending up the flare that, all of the threat matrix that I'm looking at, it concerns me a great deal. It is something to be concerned about. And there had an attack that was about to be carried out in Europe, and it got foiled. Arrests were made in Germany, Holland, and similar raids also took place in Denmark. And they were ahead of the curve there. But are we going to be ahead of the curve here if it should happen here in a bigger way? That is the question. So, as they say, during the holidays, keep your head on a swivel and sleep well, America. This is your Biden administration at work. 30 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. At Genesis Diamond, they are rolling back prices and finance rates so you can get headliner gifts just in time for Christmas. I mean, maybe it's that pair of diamond earrings or that new designer fashion bracelet or that dazzling 2-carat diamond ring. It's all more affordable because at Genesis, they've got special pricing across the board and 0% interest financing for 5 years. So you can get that $3,000 diamond pendant, pay just $50 a month. Or that $6,000 eternity band for just $100 a month. Everything included in this amazing holiday offer, all GIA certified natural diamonds and all lab-grown diamonds, even all of our luxury-owned, pre-owned Rolex watches. Imagine that $15,000 Rolex for just $250 a month. You can even finance the sales tax. Don't let talk of rising prices and high interest rates dampen your holiday spirit. At Genesis, they're lowering prices and taking interest rates down to 0. Get that amazing gift they deserve and make your money go further than ever. Merry Christmas from Genesis Diamonds, Green Hills and Cool Springs, on approved credit. It's 37 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. Good evening, everyone. I want to look at the numbers and tell you what they're saying, because there was an amazing poll. I talked about it earlier, but if you weren't with us in the earlier part of the show, you really still need to hear this. So I want to make sure everybody gets this one. There's a new Bloomberg Morning Consult poll that looks at the battleground states. Now, look. We all understand that in America, there are blue states and there are red states. California, blue state. New York, blue state. Tennessee, a red state. And, and you can count on Tennessee being a very red, ruby red state. And so, the way that it ends up is that there ends up being about, 5, 6, 7 of these so-called battleground states that you really have to look at. Sometimes they go left and sometimes they go right, and so you got to find out where the battleground states are, because without winning some of these battleground states, you can't become president. You got to get the electoral vote right. You got to get to 270. And without these battleground states, it's impossible. I mean, states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, Nevada, Arizona. Let me just go through here, though, what they found in this Bloomberg Morning Consult poll of the major battleground states. You're going to be astonished, and I'm telling you, this looks really good for Trump and looks really bad for Joe Biden. Georgia, in a two-way race between Biden and Trump, Trump would win by 6 if the election were held today in Georgia. If you look at it as a 5-way race with, some of these other candidates like RFK and others, Trump wins by 7. Pennsylvania, Trump wins by 2. In the 5-way, it's one of these rare moments where that 5-way actually goes down. Trump wins by 1, but he still wins. There have been some polls out there that suggest that Michigan is far gone. It's lost to the Democrats. And one poll we looked at said that Trump would win by 10, but this particular poll has Trump winning in Michigan by 4. Even if it's a 5-way race, it's still 4. Wisconsin, 2-way race, Trump wins by 4. 5-way race, he wins by 6. Nevada, they have Trump winning by 3 points. If it's a 5-way race, which of course it really will be, Trump wins by 5. Arizona, a 2-way race, Trump wins by 4, but in a 5-way race, he wins by 3. North Carolina, Trump wins by 9 in a 2-way race. If you look at it in a 5-way race, it's really the way you should look at it, I think, really more importantly, because there may be actually 5 or 6 people running. Trump wins by 11. That would be a landslide in North Carolina. Then there's the Rasmussen poll that came out today. And folks, I hesitate to say this to you because it's so good I can't believe it. In a general election matchup, in a 2-way between Trump and Biden, Trump would win by 10 points in the national election. 10 points. It would be an unbelievable landslide if this poll is correct. And even if you look, they didn't look at a 5-way. They looked at a 3-way. They looked at Trump, Biden, and Kennedy, RFK. And even in that, Trump would win by 8 points. Then that's outside the margin of error. I mean, that's way outside the margin of error. Now, there are other polls that don't have it that big. This could be an outlier, but one way or the other, you have to look you don't look at any one of these polls and say, well, that's it right there. That's truth. You look at these polls and you say, that's interesting. That's where we are today. It could change. It's a snapshot in time. It says this is what would happen if the election were held today. And there's a margin of error, and you have to consider that. But what you mostly want to do with polls at this point in the process, with a month and 1 day until we start voting in Iowa, you look at the trend. You look at the trend. That's the most important thing. Who's on the way up and who's on the way down? And it's undeniable. Trump is on the upswing and Biden is on the downswing. There's no doubt about it. So, I look at this and I go, well, that's pretty good. Trump's doing very well, and I'm glad to see that. But there's this nagging part of me. I can't let go of this thought, and I think if you hear me out, you'll understand why. Is that while I would love for Joe Biden to be the nominee of the Democrats, what I know about politics and the way the game is played, especially in the Democrat Party, where there's a lot of backroom negotiating that can take place, and they have the thing called superdelegates at the convention. I think that the real power brokers are just not going to allow it. Somehow, some way, they will find a way to derail Biden. I mean, I can't tell you what maybe it's a moment where he falls on the stage again. Maybe it's a number where he does something so bizarre and weird, as he often does. And by the way, each one of his appearances is getting weirder and weirder, it seems. Maybe he does something and people say, well, I mean, that's it. That's the straw that broke the camel's back. Maybe it's something like that. Maybe they just wait till the convention, see where things are, and then they decide, okay, Joe, we're gonna do the old convention switcheroo on you, and you may have won the nomination, but we're not going to allow it. And that can still happen. It can still happen. It'd be ugly, but it could still happen. So I'm reading this article now by Douglas McKinnon, who's a Republican. He's worked for Ronald Reagan, was a writer for George H.W. Bush. He was in the communications at the Pentagon during the last 3 years of the Bush administration, the old hand around town. And he's talking about whether or not Jill Biden rises to the occasion and becomes the person that saves Democrats. And let me read a little from it. Law professor Jonathan Turley wrote a comment for The Hill called, "With Hunter's indictment, Democrats faced a moment of maddening truth. That truth being that the blanket of corruption has seemingly and alarmingly settled over the Biden White House. As Turley writes, according to the recent polling, nearly 70% of voters and 40% of Democrats believe Biden has acted unlawfully or unethically or both. Those are Nixon-like numbers of perceived corruption. The acclaimed law expert further states it's now clear Biden has lied when he maintained as a candidate and later as president that he had no knowledge of his son's business dealings with foreign interests. It's also now clear that he lied in denying that his son ever made any money in China. The indictment confirms massive transfers from Chinese sources." Critics can say what they want about President Biden and his family, but it certainly seems as if his family and the First Lady have a strong and loving marriage. Each seems to be truly protective of the other. I have long believed that spouses and children of presidents should be off limits unless they choose to directly insert themselves into the debate. And they made the example of Hillary Clinton, prime example. Well, they go on to say that, she's not Hillary Clinton. She does seem to have her husband's best interest at heart, and this creates possibly the most important political question of the election. To protect her husband and the greater Biden name, will the First Lady quietly but insistently intercede to convince President Biden that it's in his best interest and that of the family not to run for re-election? Literally every single or conservative I know is hoping and praying that the president is the Democrat nominee in 2024. And there's a reason for that. Certainly what I want. Likewise, every single Democrat I know is hoping that Biden steps aside and gives his approval to the Democrat National Committee to open the process so that Vice President Kamala Harris or California Governor Gavin Newsom or others can battle it out for the 2024 nomination. As it appears now, that only one person in the country can make the Democrats' hope become a reality. And that is First Lady Jill Biden. I think he's right. I have a bit of criticism for the First Lady. And, she claims to love her husband and care deeply about him. Well, then how can she watch as he makes an absolute jerk of himself on the world stage? Stumbling and bumbling and falling. I have not yet seen, how many times does he do an event in the East Room? It's pretty simple. You walk up one side, you give your speech, you go right back out the same way you come in. It's like clockwork. He's done 100 of them. He's done hundreds of them. And yet every single time he gets through, he looks around like he doesn't know where he's supposed to go or what he's supposed to do. He's taken the short stairs on the plane so he doesn't stumble going up the big stairs. They're basically bringing him out the servants' entrance to Air Force One. Those are the lower entrances are the ones that I used to take when I flew on Air Force One. And mine was in the back, his is in the front now. But they're doing it because it's a shorter set of stairs, fewer steps, fewer opportunities for him to fall. They're giving him, old people's shoes. He doesn't wear dress shoes anymore because they think that the dress shoes are part of what make him trip and fall. It's embarrassing. This is the man who represents this country on the world stage. And he doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know where he is. The other day he called, how many times does he walk out of the Oval Office, walk across the lawn, and get into this big Sikorsky helicopter that's called Marine One? Marine One. In fact, the clue ought to be that there are two Marines standing on either side of the door in full dress uniform. So you go past them, you got to remember, oh, that's Marine One, right? The other day he called it Air Force Helicopter 1. I mean, come on. It's his helicopter. But I don't know. It just seems that the man is an embarrassment. And I as much as I want him to be the guy, I mean, I want him to march right over that cliff and just make him the nominee, and here we go. But there's just a part of me, what I know about politics and the way the Democrats play the game, I just can't believe they're going to allow that to happen. Will Jill Biden stand up? I mean, I actually think it's sort of elder abuse. It really is. I mean, they're forcing him to go through this thing, and he's not up to the task. It was interesting. I heard that when they started talking about Biden as the nominee, Barack Obama called like the top campaign people, the story goes, and said, look, I only asked for one thing. Don't let Joe embarrass himself. Well, it's too late. It has happened. Joe Biden is an embarrassment. He is not capable of doing the job. I don't have any confidence at all that he's going to be of the right mind if he gets awakened at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and have to answer that call without people there to hold his hand. I don't know what it's going to do. I have no confidence in him whatsoever. 50 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. You know, there are a lot of diagnoses out there, and you can get a pill for just about anything, but not all diagnoses are accurate, and not all pills are good for you. If you get a diagnosis for European auto repair, maybe you should get a second opinion before you make a major decision. Well, here's the thing. Eurofix is the home for second opinions. Before you spend hundreds or even thousands of dollars on European vehicle repair to get a diagnosis, why don't you go to Eurofix? It might not only save your vehicle's life, but could save you a ton of money. I mean, at Eurofix, you get a free 15-minute no-wrench inspection with an estimate at every visit. There are not going to be any high-pressure sales tactics. At Eurofix, you get a 3-year nationwide warranty and a free loaner car with every repair appointment. And at Eurofix, you never pay dealer prices. There are locations in Franklin, 100 Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and now their newest facility in Mount Juliet. Just call this number, 844-EUROFIX, or visit myEurofix.com and tell them your friend and radio buddy, Brian Wilson, sent you.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I've had a financial radio show on WTN for over 20 years. But before that, for about the first 10 years of my career, I worked for a big investment firm. The name of the game was selling and getting assets under management. Then I was introduced to evidence-based investing, driven by academic research and not the sales process. 2 big revelations. One was that investing in the stock market wasn't a gambling adventure. I had never thought about it that way. You know, think about when we invest, you're just gambling your money away and just throwing it into the casino. Well, investing in stocks is really just owning companies. And you think about some of the most successful people in the world are business owners, and you get to be a business owner when you invest in the stock market. It allows you to be part owner of the most successful companies in the world. The second had to do with how you were investing in those companies. In my former role, I was taught that my job was to use my skills to predict the future. Oh, crystal ball, what stocks or market segments are going to do best in the near future? If you listen to investing news sources and investment advisors, you'll find that making predictions is the rule rather than the exception. One recent study shows that 93% of professional managers underperformed the market over the past 15 years in their selection of large U.S. stocks. And it was over 95% that underperformed with small companies. Did you know that you could be tremendously successful as an investor without predicting the future? I believe the first step is education. However, it can't be just any education. We will help you understand what you're doing with your investments, why you're doing it, and what the basics are behind how things work. Then we make recommendations. I want you to be completely confident before you do anything. If that sounds like a winning game plan, set up a free 15-minute phone call at any of our 10 offices around Nashville. Go to paulwinkler.com to schedule a call today.